Gold-minded records, they're not your friends.
Welcome to Horror Headquarters, a weekly horror podcast. I'm your host, Klive Kraven, with my lovely co-host,
Naya Banks.
We are here to bring you the best in all things horror. News, reviews, updates, interactive polls, discussions, interviews, and more. Stay tuned and stick around as we take on the horror genre. From the rotting graves of zombies to the blood-soaked fangs of vampires. From the claws of the werewolf to the vision of the apparition. Prepare for the slaughter orders. This is Horror Headquarters. We're just dying to talk horror. Okay, that's one of the illest themes ever, though. That shit is resolved.
A little air piano over here.
So, welcome to another episode of Horror Headquarters. This is episode 8. This is our Phantasm franchise episode. I am your host, Klive Kraven, with my lovely co-host.
It's Naya, people.
And we are back with a brand new episode of horror-packed goodness with y'all. So, we hope that y'all stick around for this entire show. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Before we get into the bulk of the show, which is centered around the Phantasm films, all 5 of them, before we get into that, we have some cool news coming up, so don't go nowhere. We'll be right back in just a moment. This is Klive Kraven and
Naya Banks,
reporting live from Horror Headquarters. Our news department is making a killing to bring you the latest
Bone-breaking news.
What is good? We are back, and this is another segment, your bone-breaking news, and we have a few great stories for you this evening. So, the first one we're going to go ahead and get into is the Bad Seed remake. Rob Lowe is directing and starring in a remake of the Bad Seed. Now, I'm not a huge Rob Lowe fan. I'm not a hater of him, but I'm just not huge on him. I'm not sure about his directorial work either. I'm familiar more with him as an actor from what I do know of him, and not so much as a director. So this could be interesting. I am curious about the movie, to say the least. Just not sure if it's going to go in a direction of something that I'm really going to be digging. But I am interested in this one. So, yeah, Rob Lowe is directing and starring in a remake of The Bad Seed. Now, the first one, is basically a take on a kid becoming just, a bad seed, quote unquote. But, a kid that just basically is, comparable to the Omen. Just a fucking, a demoness child. So, I'm assuming they're going to be doing this one with a more updated look and probably a bit more effects heavy with CGI and things of that nature, which for me, I don't know. I personally am more of a practical effects guy, but this probably isn't going to go in a direction of a slasher, meaning not a lot of blood likely, so I'm not really sweating the CGI too much, if that's the direction they go with it, but it is to be expected. I don't know if this is one of those films that really honestly needs a remake, to be 100%, but I am interested, like I said, still regardless, to check it out, just because, I'll give anything pretty much a chance. I'm willing to check any movie out at least once to see, whether it's something I'm going to enjoy or not. So, the Bad Seed remake is coming, directed and starring Rob Lowe.
Boom.
Very interesting.
Yeah. We're going to welcome back Shelley Finkelstein.
Ah, that's right.
Finkelstein. Did I say it right?
Finkelstein.
Okay. From part 3, she is coming to, or he.
Sorry.
He is coming to the game, obviously.
Yeah, the Friday the 13th game. So, I've been playing the hell out of this lately, and I gotta say, it is a very fun game indeed, and highly enjoyable. At first, I was a little bit, of a hater on it, and honestly not really feeling some elements of it. But after learning how to play it a little bit and getting familiar with the controls, it's not as rigid as I was complaining about. It's just, you gotta get used to the controls. It's definitely a little bit different, but it is really fucking fun and enjoyable, and there's just something fun about going around as Jason and stalking and killing motherfuckers. It's gratifying. It is. Growing up watching these movies and being a huge fan of the Friday the 13th franchise, it's a true delight to sit down and actually play a game that is based around that. I gotta say, it really is. And if you are a fan of the films, this is definitely something to check out. And even if you're not a huge fan of the films, if you're into slashers, or horror video games in general, this is definitely one for you to check out. So, the Friday the 13th game, they're bringing Part 3's character Shelly Finkelstein in. I think that's awesome. I'm very, very excited about that one myself, and I will be grabbing that DLC as soon as it drops. That's right. So, this next one got me very excited. Naya actually found this story, and this is one that really, really, really puts a smile on my face, and that is TCM 3, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, is finally getting a Blu-ray release in 2018, and it's being released by Warner Archive, which is a very, very unique company. The fact that a lot of the stuff that they do is done on demand by votes and shit like that, and I know that you can also order specific releases through them for a higher cost, I believe. But Warner Archive is definitely a unique company. And I am looking forward to this finally getting a Blu-ray release. TCM 3 is one of my favorite of the franchise. I do enjoy this one a lot. And I am looking forward to getting it. But I will say I wish that Scream Factory or some other company would have picked it up just for the unique artwork. It's dope that it's hitting Blu-ray, but I really would have liked to see a collector's edition of this one. Getting the same treatment the Part 2 got. So hopefully we see that in the near future. But I am looking forward to that one. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled in 2018 because we are getting that TCM 3 on Blu-ray. Very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah. An American Werewolf in London is getting a remake. Max Landis is currently scripting his own script. I don't know why I said it twice. But yeah, of his father John's classic film.
Yeah, now, the original film, An American Werewolf in London, is very dope. And we watched that not that long ago.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, it is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, werewolf films of all time. At least for having the most convincing transformation and a great story still. It's so fucking entertaining. And I really do like An American Werewolf in London. I love the fact that he's being stalked basically by his friend's corpse in various stages of decomposition and giving him advice that he's going to be turning to a wolf. And I love that. I love just that build up and that suspense that's there. So the fact that a remake is coming and his son is doing it is very interesting. However, I did read this, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I read somewhere that John Landis is not happy that he is doing this remake and is not giving his blessing to this remake.
I kind of see, because my main thing is that transformation scene. Is he going to live up to his father's work on that?
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. I can tell you right now that likely the transformation scene nowadays would be handled with CGI. And that alone is going to automatically not make it comparable. You know what I mean? It's just, it's two different leagues. And it's possible to do it with CGI nowadays, without CGI nowadays and make it look good, but something tells me that that's not the way it's going to go down. It's going to be more of a modern look, and unfortunately, that's probably what's going to end up happening with the film. So I am interested to see where it goes, but I don't have high expectations for this one. But I will check it out.
Yeah,
end of the day, I will check it out. So, An American Werewolf in London remake is coming, so very interesting indeed. That about wraps up our bone-breaking news for this week. A lot of good stuff coming in the pipeline, so keep your eyes peeled for all those delightful releases and goodies coming in the near future and in the new year. So we're going to go ahead and keep it moving and get into our next segment. So don't go nowhere. Go get yourself some nachos and Doritos. Literally, Dury's toes. Some homeless guy in a desert named Dury. Cut his toes off. Feed him to your family on some, stories to tell in the dark type shit.
Or you can go be a Pennywise and go and get some dairy toes.
That's slick. Toes and dairy.
Yeah,
I see what you did there. Boom. Brum. So don't go nowhere. We'll be right back in just a moment.
And now, Horror Headquarters presents your feature presentation, Vital Organs Discussion.
We are back, and this is your Vital Organs Discussion. And of course, this week we are talking about the Phantasm franchise. And this one is one of my favorites. I really do enjoy these films. This is my first time getting a chance to see the new one, Ravager. So this was a really, really, really fun time to sit down and go through these 5 films. So we're going to be running over Phantasm from 1979, Phantasm 2 from 1988, Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead from 1994, Phantasm 4, Oblivion from 1998, and Phantasm 5, Ravager from 2016. So it's going to be a pleasure going over these 5 films. I have a lot to say on all these. We have a lot of cool facts, especially about the original. So before we dive into all that, though, we are going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the franchise as a whole. So we have some really cool facts here about the film. And I tell you what, there's some things in here that I was not familiar with, and I've really done some reading and studying on this franchise, and have watched a lot of the commentaries and documentaries and things like that. And there was a lot of stuff that I was able to read up on that I just was not aware of that I thought was really cool. So definitely interesting indeed. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. The first thing I have here is the story idea for the original film came to Don Coscarelli in a dream. One night in his late teens, he dreamed of fleeing down endlessly long marble corridors, pursued by a chrome sphere intent on penetrating his skull with a wicked needle. There was also quite the futuristic spear dispenser, out of which the orbs would emerge and begin chasing him. Okay.
Well then.
So, in essence, the movie Phantasm really is a Don Coscarelli dream. A nightmare, rather. Now, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, that's really, really fucking cool. And I love when directors do shit like that. We talked about Wes Craven before with A Nightmare on Elm Street, using experience he had as a kid with seeing the burnt-faced homeless man out front as, the inspiration for Freddy. So, seeing Coscarelli use his dream as inspiration for a film, that kind of gives me that same type of vibe. And that's really fucking cool that... that's where that came from, is from a nightmare that he had. So I thought that was a really interesting fact, and I like that. I like that it comes from a place of not just imagination, but a subconscious thought.
Yeah.
And so that's really fucking cool to me, and definitely puts a different spin on the film for me. I thought that was a very cool fact indeed.
Originally, writer-director Don Coscarelli considered the first film's ending to be conclusive and did not feel knowledgeable about writing a sequel. But, there's the but. Coscarelli had what he described as a breakthrough when he realized that he could start the film immediately after the previous film's final scene.
So, yeah, this
was awesome.
This is something that kind of happens, honestly, throughout all the films. There is a really cool continuity between these, and we talked about this while we were watching them, and it was something that I pointed out that I personally love in movies when they do that, where there's an ending scene and the next movie takes right off kind of where that one left. There's a few movies that do that, and it does have a really cool vibe when you get that kind of continuous flow. Evil Dead franchise was one of the ones that really did that for us, that we talked about. You can watch all 3 of them back to back and kind of get a whole film. And there's other films that do that, where you get a really cohesive film in between sequels, and this one really nails that home. So I thought that was a really interesting fact as well. And just goes to show that, Coscarelli is, a hell of a writer, and this movie is, to me, one of his finest shining moments. Indeed, if not my favorite film from him, probably my favorite film, honestly, especially the original. Mm-hmm. With him being involved in all of them, I would still say the original is, my favorite. Now, I do like all of them for their own reasons. I do feel that overall, each film brings something dope and new to the franchise, but like I mentioned, the original is probably my favorite. So, Coscarelli has later revealed that some of the elements of this movie, the original movie, were influenced by Stephen King, especially a few aspects of his novel Salem's Lot. Now, I gotta say that Stephen King is such a predominant force in the horror genre without even really, having a catalog of films. He's directed one film, Maximum Overdrive, but penned tons. Now, he doesn't necessarily pen the films themselves, the movies, rather than the stories that they get adapted from, the books they get adapted from, which is the flesh and the bones of the story anyway. But I think it's just crazy that he's involved so heavily, and he's so hard on himself when it comes to directing. Stephen King actually went on record to say that he would never pick up a camera to direct again after he did Maximum Overdrive. He hated it that much. He did one film and fucking hated it. And it's crazy to me because Maximum Overdrive is one of my favorite horror films growing up as a kid.
I haven't seen it.
And it's really cool. The story and premise on Maximum Overdrive is essentially a town overtaken by machines. Soda machines, fucking hedge clippers, chainsaws,
anything
cars, anything
basically.
Electronic is turning on people.
That sounds
so,
weird.
like, a dude gets killed with a soda machine, chucking sodas out and fucking bashing his body and face in. Another dude, a chick gets killed with a fucking turkey saw, like an electric turkey cutter.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like electric cutter, electric carver, yeah.
Oh,
Then the 18-wheelers take over a fucking gas station and start circling a gas station and like trap all these people there. Emilio Estevez is in it and shit. But it's a classic and I love it. I actually love Maximum Overdrive and he fucking hates the movie. He did it and just absolutely hates it. So he vowed to never direct again. So unfortunately, we ain't gonna see Stephen King behind a camera anytime soon, I don't think. But man, I'm just blown away that he is so important to the genre and just refuses to get behind the camera. And with all the films he's done and stories, the films that he's been a part of and the stories that he's done, you would think that he'd want to get behind the camera more, but that one always just blew my mind that he was, not wanting to do that.
I figured he would be an amazing director considering what he writes down.
Yeah,
basically directing is basically like taking your thoughts and putting them out there.
Yeah, his visuals that he depicts with his writing are phenomenal. So I don't understand the whole not wanting to do it, but definitely a dope fact and very cool indeed.
Universal Studios, who took an interest in the film because they wanted a horror series, allocated $3 million. This was the lowest budget of any of their films in the 1980s, but it was the highest budget of any Phantasm film.
Now, this was a little wild to me, too, because I was under the impression that maybe parts, 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 with some of the CGI stuff was a little bit more pricey. I did not realize that the OG was the priciest, which is even crazier because it's the oldest, meaning the inflation was the lowest. Mm-hmm. So the price was really the highest by far because even without the inflation calculated in, it was still higher as far as the budget goes. Yeah. I will say, like I mentioned before, that the original is my favorite, and maybe it is partially because of having such a high budget, they were able to do certain things in it. But the vibe and the feel and the aesthetic and the look for me is what really drove it home for the original. And obviously that theme and the origin of that theme and things like that. But I really did enjoy this one, the original, and with it having the biggest budget, that's not a surprise. You know what I mean? So that makes sense. Greg Nicotero and Robert Kurtzman, later of K&B Effects, were recruited for special effects. The studio exerted much control over the film. They did not allow Coscarelli to include any dream sequences or ambiguity.
That's stupid. Because it was like...
Yeah, I guess, I guess they wanted to have things done a certain way, and I get that. A studio has to make money on a film, and if they're putting money into it, if a studio is backing a film, obviously they have to make it to where they feel they're going to be able to pull some revenue and streams and funds back from what they put out into the movie. I get that. I get it's a business, but when you start taking away so much control from the director and the writers of the film, it really does put a burden on the quality of the film, because it's hard to make something that's great quality or live up to what you want it to be if you're not given free reign on it to do what needs to be done on it. So I definitely think that that's interesting that, they try to, cut certain things, or did really cut certain things by not allowing full control to Coscarelli. So that kind of sucks, unfortunately. Although I will say having Nicotero and Kurtzman involved on the effects was a great idea, because both those guys are phenomenal makeup effect artists that I'd put up right up there with Tom Savini and Dick Smith and Baker and a lot of other great makeup effects artists. These guys are right up there with the tops, Nicotero and Kurtzman. So dope to see them involved.
Yeah. The executives also wanted to recast both Michael Baldwin and Reggie Bannister because they were unknown and had been cut out of the movie business since the release of the first movie.
Yep.
Whoa. Don Coscarelli resisted their efforts and was forced to audition Michael Baldwin and Reggie Bannister for the opportunity to reprise their roles.
So yeah, basically Coscarelli wanted to bring them back, but because of their absence from film since then, he had to audition them to bring them back in for that role. Now, I believe this was not in favor for Michael Baldwin, because I don't believe he did not come back for the second one.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He was not in the second one. He made his return in the third one, but Reggie did come back in the second one. Reggie is, in fact, him and the Tall Man are the only characters to appear in all 5 films. I think. Wait, no. I can't remember if Jody is in all 5. I know he's in the first. He appears in the second. I think through flashbacks he's in all 5, but I don't think he's legit in all 5. But I know that Reggie is legit in all 5 movies. So I think him and Tall Man are the only two that are consistently in each of the 5 films. Yeah. But yeah, it was weird to see them change the actor in part 2. We actually talked about that, and I think there's some notes on that when we get to part 2. And get out of these franchise notes, but I do think that it was interesting that they decided to replace him in the second one. And honestly, I don't feel like the dude looked a ton like him, like really. But whatever. I mean, I understand things like that happen with movies. It was just weird to see him come in and be switched and then come back again as his original character after that. It was just a little weird.
They probably tried to do like everything they could though to try to make him look like Michael.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was definitely some things done, whether it was hair color or styling or basic stuff. I mean, you can't give somebody surgery, but you could do a little bit of light makeup and hair effects and things like that to kind of style them to look more like somebody else. But he just didn't look a ton like the kid in the face. So it was obvious that it was somebody different. They might have been able to get away with it a little bit because he was young in the first one and you wouldn't know what he looked like exactly as an adult, so it could be a little bit more believable. But it was weird to see him come back in the third one after you could clearly recognize it was the kid from the first one when he came back. But very cool indeed. So after the mild box office results of Phantasm 2 from '88, Universal Studios chose not to personally pursue a sequel, but did offer to distribute it should Don Coscarelli and Associates make it themselves, which obviously they did.
Yeah.
So Phantasm 2 comes out in '88, and Universal does not want to get behind it and back it for financing, but does offer to distribute it. So they get the distribution through Universal, and they end up dropping part 2. And like I said, I like 2. I don't think it lives up to the first one, but I thought it was a solid follow-up. Just a few, roughly a decade later. I was going to say a few years later, but I realized it was 9 years later. So about a decade later, they do the sequel and they follow up with part 2, and Universal just doesn't want to get behind it with the financing. But they do offer to distribute it, thankfully, because obviously Phantasm 2 was a success and it allowed for the spawning of the other sequels. So perhaps if they didn't get behind that and give that distribution, we might not even have got a Phantasm 2, and we probably wouldn't have got a Phantasm 3, 4, or 5. So very glad that ended up happening that way, for sure.
With no casting restrictions this time, Coscarelli offered the role of Mike to his original performer, A. Michael Baldwin, who returned to the role after almost 16 years in Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead.
Yeah, so we touched on this, but we didn't touch necessarily on the gap of 16 years. I mean, that is a long time to go between reprising a role. Now, it's been done, especially more recently in modern times, where they have big gaps in films like that and bring somebody back. But it's not a very typical thing where they take gaps like that and then bring back the same character. So,
and I think I read somewhere that what they because he like aged in the face a little. Mm-hmm. What they like dyed his hair back to almost what it looked like in the first one, and they like makeup touches here and there to make him look younger.
Yeah, just to keep the cohesion there. I could definitely see that. But I thought that was really fucking cool, and I mean, 16 years later, they're coming back and reprising the role. I mean, I love that. I love to see character continuity carried over from film to film. Like I mentioned, I wasn't a big fan of Phantasm 2 when they switched Michael out with a different actor. But I get why they do that, and I totally understand it. It just sucks when it has to happen, so it was kind of unfortunate. Roger Avery, a self-confessed hardcore fan of the Phantasm series, wrote an epic screenplay originally called Phantasm 1999 AD as a follow-up to Phantasm 3 Lord of the Dead from 94. It was set in a post-apocalyptic near future featuring Bruce Campbell as a co-star. Now, this was dope to me because we had talked about how Evil Dead originally, the alternate ending, I believe, was supposed to be in a post-apocalyptic future, and him being in London. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. It was a post-apocalyptic London, and obviously that's Bruce Campbell. Well, the original script for Phantasm 4 would have had Bruce Campbell in a post-apocalyptic future, so that is pretty crazy that was done. And you know what's even more bugged the fuck out? We talked about the connection with Sam Raimi and Don Coscarelli. Mm-hmm. Raimi directed Evil Dead, Coscarelli directed this. So
they could have clashed.
Yeah, I mean, well, they could have had the concepts flowing there to have that continuity between their characters. Now,
Phantasm of the Evil Dead.
Phantasm of the Evil Dead. Boom. Hashtag registration mark. Trademark. Getting all that money, though. But yeah, that would have been dope. I really do like the idea of that, and I thought that was a really cool factoid. I really do wish that would have happened. Unfortunately, it didn't, but whatever. At least we ended up getting a Phantasm 4, then eventually a 5. So at least a film did come out. It just wasn't as originally planned with being the post-apocalyptic near future with Bruce Campbell in it, as originally stated.
That would have been really cool, though.
Yes, it would have.
As the time passed and they couldn't get the budget needed, which was around $10 million, Don Coscarelli wrote and directed a fourth installment titled Phantasm 4 Oblivion as a precursor to the project that was conveniently retitled Phantasm 2012 AD. That's weird. Before renaming the planned film as Phantasm's End.
So, this film basically, went through a lot of changes as far as the titles and what they wanted to do with the future of Phantasm after 3 was done. There was a lot of concepts for what was going to be with 4 and the future of it in different projects. A lot of different titles. You had Phantasm 99 AD, Phantasm 2012 AD, Phantasm's End, Phantasm Oblivion. There was a lot of different titles kicked around.
I think there was one that I read. It was like Phantasm Infinity or something.
Yeah, I think I read that one as well. So there was all types of different titles that were, kicked around and possibly going to be used, but none of these ended up making it, obviously, except for Oblivion, which became Part 4. And none of the other titles ended up being used for anything thus far. Although there was another part with 5, which was Ravager, a totally different title, but also didn't use any of those titles or any of those concepts really either. But very cool. So ultimately, when the financing for such an ambitious sequel couldn't be secured, the idea was scrapped altogether. So they couldn't get the money. to do what they wanted to do for the original sequel, I guess, which was the one planned for 4, which would have been part 5. So the original plans for that and what they wanted to do got scrapped. So that's when 5 kind of hit a wall and didn't happen. And it makes sense because around that time, the mid-2000s, early 2000s, when, this is going on, it was just a few years after Oblivion. Oblivion dropped in 98, so early 2000s, just a few short years later, so it makes sense they'd be trying to power out another film and get it out within a relative time frame while, strike while the iron's hot and the film is still out, the previous one, and it's still buzzing. Or at least having some type of buzz amongst the horror community. Yeah. So, very cool. Obviously, they eventually did get financing for it because 5 did happen. It just didn't happen to the extent that they wanted. And we'll talk a little bit more about the lower budget on 5 when we get to it.
In March 2005, it was announced that Coscarelli was in the final stages of talks with New Line Cinema to produce a new entry. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the new film is being developed as a relaunch and as a possible trilogy about Mike's coming of age. Quote unquote. This version never came into fruition.
So, yeah, they wanted to do this film, and they wanted to basically make it possibly a trilogy, which would have been really cool in its own right. But unfortunately, that never happened. Obviously, this was, in 2005. So, at this point, they were working on concepts for 5, but nothing had become solid. And this was a concept that they had that ultimately never happened. But it's unfortunate because I really do like the concept of having a film more on Mike's, years of growing up rather than having the skips. Because they did skip a lot of years in his life, and you miss out on that. I wish they would have been able to do something to go back on that, but I'm not sure how they would have done that. Because the point that they done this, obviously Mike couldn't have gone back and played a younger version of himself.
Oh, yeah.
They would have had to use a different actor again, meaning a third actor then would have been playing the same role throughout the franchise.
Unless he had a kid.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible. But you'd have to look a lot like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So, rumors about a sequel were reignited in June 2007 by footage contained in Don Coscarelli's Farewell to the Alamo Drafthouse, featuring Angus Scrimm and A. Michael Baldwin in their roles. However, an interview with Reggie Bannister surfaced on YouTube, and when asked about the possibility of a 5th film, he stated there was no activity or development, but that anything was possible in the future.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, so, macho. So, they basically alluded to possibly a 5th film being done, and this is around 2007 period. Still quite a few years before they actually got a chance to do a part 5, which didn't drop until 2016, even though we know it was filmed and worked on years before then. So 07 was still quite a whiles away from this, so it would make sense that they weren't really sure what was going to happen or if another film would come in the franchise. Thankfully, we did get the 5th installment, and it kind of closed up the franchise a bit. I do believe that they left room for a 6th one if they want to do a 6th one, but with Angus Scrimm passing away and the limbo of Reggie and the end of 5, it's really tough to say whether there will be another one. But I think it's possible. I think they did leave it possible because they brought back, what was the character's name? Rocky. They brought Rocky back, and the little dude was still alive, and Reggie was still alive in the back. The brother Jody was still alive. Michael was still alive. So, I mean, it is possible.
We'd have to talk about, because I got some thoughts about that.
It is possible. Yeah. And depending, you never know. They could have got extra footage of Scrimm while he was alive from 5 and could use it in 6. So, boom, mind blown. That, that's possible. That is possible. And I would not be opposed to that happening either. So
either that, or I feel like they would use, like, some serious CGI from, like, previous movies, and that would kind of be all weird and fucky.
But, yeah, I really thought that was a lot of cool stuff that they had in the 5th one to kind of ode back to the originals and things of that nature and keep that story going. But that about wraps up our thoughts on the notes and our trivia and information that we had on the franchise as a whole. We're going to go ahead and get into the individual films now, starting off with the first one in the franchise and my personal favorite of the franchise, the OG, the granddaddy, the one, the only Phantasm OG from 1979, directed by the legendary Don Coscarelli. Now, I can go on for days about this one. I love everything about this film. The atmosphere, the soundtrack. I think the acting is solid. I think the tall man is terrifying. I love the little lurker creatures. It hits on every fucking level for me. You know, from the second that the movie starts, you're intrigued and pulled in all the way to the last second with the boy. You know what I mean? Like, pulling him through the mirror and shit. So, the entire film keeps you absolutely intrigued. But before I go ahead and we dive into our thoughts and our ratings and rantings on this film, we do have some really cool factoids that we're going to go over and talk about with this film. So, let's go ahead and get right on into it. Don Coscarelli rented, not bought, rented all of the filming equipment used to make this movie, always on Fridays, so he could use it all weekend and return it on Mondays, all the while only actually having to pay 1 day's rental on the equipment instead of the weekend. Now, that is fucking slick and smart and efficient filmmaking. Now, that's something that I got to keep in mind when I decide to get into filmmaking, to make sure that I rent my equipment on them Fridays and get that weekend discount rate. Shouts out to Big Don Coscarelli for that shit. So I do like that. I think that's a very slick idea, and I think it's cool to show that, you know, budget filmmaking at its finest, even when you're working on a film that had a $3 million budget, anything you can do to cut corners, save money, and make a better overall product, do it. Why not, right? So I think it's really cool that they ended up renting this on the weekends so they could, you know, get it on Friday and have that full weekend and only pay that 1 day. It's smart thinking. Yeah. That's smart thinking, and that's efficient guerrilla filmmaking right there. That is just straight up, we're going to take advantage of the situation, make the best of it, and go the cheap route. And God damn it, that's smart. And I appreciate that shit. So, very dope.
Although being very tall, standing at 6'4", Angus Scrimm wore suits several sizes smaller and boots with lifts inside that added 3 inches to his height.
So he's standing at about 6'7".
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is pretty fucking tall. That's pretty intimidating and tall and fucking it's scary. You know what I mean? For somebody that's a regular height, like I'm about 5'10". So somebody standing next to me that's 6'7" is gonna tower over me. You know what I mean? And that always adds an element of fear, is somebody with extreme height or extreme shortness. You know what I mean? Anything that you're not used to seeing, the unknown. You know what I mean? It boils down to the unknown. Like, people fear what they don't know or understand or commonly see. So somebody that's extremely tall, you know, it puts off. There's people that actually have a fear of tall people. So
like me.
See, that doesn't bother me. That does not bother me at all. People with height don't bother me, and even like shortness, like you know, dwarves and midgets and little people, like that shit does not bother me. You know what I mean? Like, it's never, you know, been an issue for me, but I can see why it does. Like, extremes of anything can trigger certain people, so I definitely get that.
Like, I'm 5'7", right? So it's like, if I like was standing next to Angus Scrimm and having to go against him, yeah, bro, you do your thing. I'm just gonna stay over here in my corner.
Yeah, Angus Scrimm is definitely a gooned out looking character too. Rest in peace to Mr. Scrimm, but the tall man is just such an epic character and so fucking terrifying, and it adds to the allure of his character a lot, in my opinion, and I think it's definitely something that makes him stand out for sure. The spheres were designed by craftsman Willard Green, who charged the production a little over $1,100 for his services. Sadly, he died just after production completed at the end of 1977 and never saw his work on the big screen.
That's sad, honestly.
That not only is sad, but that fucking sucks. As a creator myself, I can honestly say that if I, you know, was doing something for a film, especially a major distributed film, and I, you know, didn't get an opportunity to see, I mean, you can't say that you'd be mad, but like, I guess in heaven or hell, you'd be fucking butthurt about it. Like, oh, fuck. You know this work and nothing happened from it? Didn't even get to see it. Oh. Like, it makes me wonder if his family got any type of royalties from it or what. But, no, I'm serious. I wonder if, like, his family got royalties from it. But it does suck. It does suck that he didn't get a chance to see that. You know, it's very unfortunate because those are so iconic. You know what I mean? Those spheres are extremely iconic to that film. I mean, that's probably the thing that people know the most is the ball and the fucking tall man. Yeah. Everyone knows the sphere and the tall man. Everybody that knows Phantasm. Those are the two most, you know, standout things in the movie is the weapon and the killer.
And I bet you, like, if you ask somebody about him, it's like, what do you remember most about it? It's like, oh, them just coming straight in their face. And
in your face.
Like, spewing out their blood from the other side.
Yeah, the fucking continuous stream of gurgitated flesh bloods at your skull.
And brains.
But, yeah, that's pretty cool. And, you know, sad, though, that he didn't get a chance to see that. But crazy, just 1,100 for him designing those those spheres.
Don Coscarelli took the title Phantasm from the works of Edgar Allan Poe. It is a term frequently used by Poe in his writings. Yeah,
so I'm a huge fan of Poe myself, but I've never noticed that being used in his writings, to be honest. And it says it's frequently used, so I'll have to go back and maybe pay a little bit more attention to that. But I never noticed it personally, but I thought that was a really dope fact, and what a great little tie-in to horror as well, with a lot of Poe's writings obviously being horror-based, mystery, thriller, science fiction kind of vibe. But, a lot of the stuff that he writes is more dark gothic, fiction type stuff. So it fits with Phantasm being, a very dark horror film. Yeah. Very fitting indeed. But I like that. I like little ties like that, especially between books and film. Really, really cool stuff. So the ball scenes were simple special effects. The sphere was thrown from behind the camera by a baseball pitcher, and then the shot was printed in reverse. The ball attaching itself to the man's head was filmed by sticking it on his head, then pulling it off and printing the shot in reverse as well.
That's awesome.
So now I've seen this technique used where they'll actually, film something intentionally in the opposite way, or the easier way to film it, and then just reverse it in post-production. This way you get the reversal of the effect. Whether you're, like, if you're dropping something, throwing something, lifting something, you can show that, but do it in reverse and give that illusion. Yeah. Another cool thing that they've done with that is where if you want to make something appear like it's going back into your hand, you can throw it from your hand in an awkward way where it looks like you're kind of just like pushing it out forward. Mm-hmm. But if you play it in reverse, it'll look like you're actually just having it, come back to your hand. So you could do like a Jedi mind trick basically with your own filming, just doing it in reverse. So there's cool things like that you can do, and obviously they did that here. So I thought that was a really cool way to do it, and a simple way to do it, and really cool idea to have a baseball pitcher throwing the spheres behind the scenes to get a straight shot and a speedy shot. And with accuracy as well, so it makes sense that they did that, but very cool factoid indeed.
Yeah. The dwarves were played by children. That's adorable, because they were creepy.
Adorfable.
This guy here.
So, it's really cool to me that they use kids in this one for the dwarf part, because a lot of times, though, they will actually use legit, midgets or small people to do the roles of these parts. So using children is a little bit different, and it's something I did not know either. When we started researching this film, that was actually something that was new to me. Now the dwarves, as they're mentioned, are also called lurkers. Mm-hmm. In part 3 I believe it was, but I think we read that was the only film that they actually did that in. Yep. But that's really cool that they used kids to play those roles. And I wonder if the kids that played those roles were, and we've talked about this, were relatives or related to members of the film, whether the Coscarellis or Michael Baldwin's family or whoever. Anybody that was involved with the film. It makes you wonder if there were relatives of them that, did those masked roles, because none of the characters that played the dwarfs were really seen without a mask or without makeup on the face. So, all of them obviously could have easily been disguised and were disguised to make them look like adults, mainly using masks, because obviously if it was children, you'd be able to tell it was children, but they didn't want that. They wanted them to look like adults. Makes sense. But very cool. So the film's original running time was more than 3 fucking hours, but the writer-director Don Coscarelli decided that was far too long for it to hold people's attention and made numerous cuts to the film. Some of the unused footage was located in the late 1990s and became the framework for Phantasm 4: Oblivion from 98. The rest of the footage is believed to be lost. Now, yeah, this is kind of sad and depressing, because it makes me wonder what other footage they had. And, the lost quote-unquote footage.
I was going to say, those lost footages could possibly be used
down the road.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked about this, too, with 5 using a lot of sequences.
Yeah.
From, or 4 using a lot of sequences from 1. And that was really cool. Now, 5 had some flashbacks, but 4 was really heavy on it. 4 was the one that was really heavy on showing stuff from the one that wasn't used. That's the cool part about it. The stuff they show in 4 wasn't used in 1. So you're getting these flashbacks from 1, but it's stuff that you never saw in 1.
Yeah.
But it's from that time period. So that was super fucking dope to me. And that's what I was saying. It'd be cool if they had some footage of Angus Scrim, you know, similar to this, and they used it in footage. So that would be really dope to do. But I thought that was a really, really, really cool thing. And what a great way to include that footage, you know, on Coscarelli's part, to include that footage that was lost from the original and put it into something and not waste it.
I was going to say it basically didn't go to waste. So.
Yeah, really good idea. I love that. I really did like that.
So Don Coscarelli got the idea of the tall man's living severed finger from drinking from a styrofoam cup. He punched his finger through the bottom and started moving it. He loved the visual effect of it and decided to include it in the movie. So basically, from him being a child.
And well, you know, it doesn't even say if he was a child. Like, he could have been he could have straight up just been a grown ass man and seen that and just been like, wow, that actually works as a great effect.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it can be simple shit like that ends up being great. So I'm not a hater when they end up using effects like that or when they do something that's really simple. If they can make it work and it looks legit, whatever needs to be done to do it. But that was a really cool little thing in there and an easy gag to really pull off and achieve. But I do like that they had that concept just from one of his personal things. And like I said, I'm a big fan of that whenever a director includes personal things from their life or experiences they've had or whatever into the film. I do like that. So that's really cool. So when informed that he would be playing an alien, Scrim became very excited and immediately asked to know what country his character would hail from. Pepperman said he's not from another country, he's from another world.
Darn it, Mr. Scrim.
Yeah, so Scrim, I guess, was thinking that he was playing like a alien, like from another country, like, you know, an illegal alien or whatever. Not actually a legit out of this universe from another fucking planet alien, which is ultimately what the tall man is. You know, he's this mythical being, this creature of sorts that's, you know, human-like but not human. He's a little bit taller, yellow blood, kind of eternal, exists in multiple dimensions, so there's things that separates him from human, but he certainly looks human besides the fact of being a little oversized and super fucking creepy.
Yeah.
So, you know, really cool that you know, they made him a alien, you know, ultimately in the film. And not just a monster. He is, you know, basically playing an alien. And I think a lot of people don't understand that or get that it is an alien and not a monster. Or a creature, even, for that matter. Even though I referred to him as that. But very cool factoid. I really like that.
At around 8 minutes... That's the side note. The coffin that Mike sees the tall man lift by himself and shove back into the hearse was made out of balsa wood.
Yeah.
Oh.
Extra cheap.
It was empty and had a rope on the side facing away from the camera to make it easier to handle. The rope can briefly be seen as the tall man lifts up the coffin.
Yeah, so this is just, we talk about like continuity issues a lot on here, and this is not necessarily a continuity issue. This is just a small mistake, something they left in that just shouldn't have been visible. So this, you know, this happens in films, but obviously they had to have a way to legit make the maneuverability of this possible. I'm sure they had somebody in the back of the hearse maneuvering the rope and pulling it in as Angus lifted it and pushed it in. Because even it being made out of balsa wood, I'm sure there was still some weight to that thing.
Well, they still put like the cloth and the like bedding and stuff in there, so
yeah.
That was probably heavy.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what the weight was on that, like I said, even with just the balsa wood, but I know it had to be up there because the size of it and the dimensions of it suggest some weight to it. So I can imagine that it was not easy to do that scene. So they just had the issue with the light being seen on there, but like I said, I mean that type of weight, or with the rope being seen, but like I said, with that type of weight, it's expected, you know, to have something to help move it around, because otherwise it wouldn't even be possible.
You probably had like the guys over here with the rope like thrown around a branch and pulling it this way and then pulling it that way and then him
pulley
swinging
system.
it, basically. Yeah. Teamwork.
So, at around 23 minutes, the iconic bed nightmare sequence was number 25 on the cable channel Bravo's list of 100 scariest movie moments.
Boom.
So, I thought that this was really cool. I didn't really notice this because I don't really watch Bravo, but I know that it is a pretty well-known network, and to see a film like this, it's a little bit more of a... I call this one almost a mainstream underground film because... it's often not mentioned when people first talk about horror films in the mainstream. You hear your Texas Chainsaw Massacre, your Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser, Child's Play. But then Phantasm a lot of time gets left out. A lot of people forget this one. This is a 5-film franchise, so it was cool to see one of the best moments from this make it on that list. And I believe the one that they're talking about is the scene where you see the tall man at the edge of the bed, which also is used in the poster, that scene of him standing, which is right behind me. That's why my voice sounded all weird, because I was turning around looking at a poster and pointing it out. But it's definitely cool to see that it made that list, and rightfully so, because the movie does have some terrifying moments for sure.
The stone-looking interior of the mausoleum was actually constructed of plywood and marble-colored plastic contact paper. That's terrifying to say.
Well, wait a minute. Stone. Okay, so the interior of the mausoleum was really... Yeah. Now that... I don't know how I feel about that now, because I'll be honest. Listen to me.
I did think it was a real stone
It's a little disappointing, because to be honest, I thought it was a legit mausoleum they filmed in. I thought it was a legit funeral home with fucking real indoor mausoleum that they actually filmed that at. I didn't realize that it was marble colored plastic and contact paper.
Yeah.
And plywood. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like it at all. And you definitely don't get the idea. And to think about it, I mean, there's a lot of shots where they show a lot of different tombs. So I imagine the workload on creating that was immense. You know what I mean? It's crazy to me that they put that much work into that rather than just actually filming at a mausoleum. I mean, I wonder what maybe they couldn't get the license to do it, or they couldn't get a facility to do it, or didn't have the money, or what. I'm not sure what the reason was there, but that kind of boggles my head just a little bit, to be honest. And it's a little bit of a letdown, to be honest. So, to get the inspiration needed, Don Coscarelli spent a couple of weeks in an isolated cabin in the mountains outside Los Angeles while writing the script. So, now this is very common in writers, and I've done it myself. I think a lot of times where you kind of just want isolation for a few different reasons. It gives you the peace of mind to do it and focus on it and not have any interruptions. But it also gives you a sense of detachment and isolation by not being around people that you also can't get by living at your house or doing whatever. So there is really cool reasons and ways to detach yourself when doing writing, and obviously going to an isolated cabin to write is a fantastic way to do it, and a very common thing that is done to help lubricate the wheels in the mind and get things moving, get things cranking. And that's exactly what it does. It works as a way to kind of put your foot in the door and get the cog wheels rolling. And that's exactly what he ended up doing, is taking a little break, going for a couple weeks into this isolated cabin and penning the script, and boom, we ended up getting this fantastic flick, which is Phantasm. So very dope.
When I hear about writers doing this, it makes me wonder why they go to that certain location. Why in the mountains?
Well, I mean, it could have been something that is family owned, or for him, maybe that was the isolated spot for him, out in the mountains, away from a lot of people. Maybe he wanted to go beyond regular isolation of going to a not so visited area to a completely isolated area where he's not going to have to worry about even bumping into anybody. You know what I mean? If you're up in a mountain area, there's not going to be a ton of people that live up there. So the population is going to be very sparse, and it's going to allow for you to have that freedom of being by yourself and that openness of nothing. Yeah. And that's, I think, honestly, what I think he was really looking for when he did this. In my own view, just as a writer myself, that's why I would choose that type of spot, is just for that isolation from everybody.
I guess I got that. Yeah. Me personally, I don't like being alone. Don Coscarelli's mother, novelist Kate Coscarelli, held several titles on the production and even used 2 aliases, S. Tyler, like S. Tyler, and Shirley May for production design and makeup or costume design, respectively.
Pause. Hashtag.
She also wrote a novel adaptation based on the film. It was published in 2002, and only 500 copies were produced.
Now, that is a very, very limited run. 500 copies of something. And that's pretty cool, that there was these adaptations that were based off of it. And it really makes me wonder what these books read like. I was not aware of their existence, so these might be something I might have to try to get my hands on. But with only 500 copies being produced, I imagine that they're extremely pricey and hard to get a hold of. But now that I know they do exist, these are something that I'll have to try to get my hands on and add to the collection, because I do think that's a very, very, very cool thing to have books from these films. Especially the original, indeed. And it being written by Coscarelli's mom is even fucking cooler. So, very interested, actually, to look more into that and see what I can dig up on it. So, the song Ace of Spades by Motorhead was released a year after Phantasm from 1979 and is reported to have its origins in the film. At a New York screening of the movie, Lemmy was heard to have muttered that Mike's head looked like the Ace of Spades, and then spent much of the rest of the film writing out the lyrics in a notepad. He used the pencil that had been given to him earlier that day by David Soul.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of little ties linking the Ace of Spades song for Motorhead to the Phantasm movie, and this being probably the most big one out of them all is, during the screening of it where Lemmy was, in attendance, he was making jokes about the appearance of Mike's head. So it's just kind of funny that song, which is a very, very popular song, if not the most popular by Motorhead, ended up being such a big part of linked to Phantasm, by its writing and possibly the concept for it even being pulled from Phantasm directly from a joke that he made. I thought that was really, really good.
J.J. Abrams, co-writer and director of Star Wars The Force Awakens from 2015, revealed in an interview published in Entertainment Weekly that he came up with the name of the Captain Phasma. Phasma?
Phasma.
Phasma. Ooh, that's fancy.
Fancy. Captain Phasma.
Yeah, that character, after seeing it in chrome design, it reminded me of the ball in Phantasm.
Yeah, so basically seeing that design had reminded him of the film and kind of made him want to throw the name on that part. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool that they adapted that and used that. And I am a fan of Abrams' work and was a fan of Force Awakens, but didn't really catch that reference in there. So, it's cool to always read up and research on these films because there's always a ton of little references to shit that you might not catch, even if it's something you've actually seen before. Sometimes you just don't catch it all the time. And this is another one of those instances where I've seen the film. I actually saw Force Awakens in theaters and did not remember, that name. So it was very cool to be reminded of that and go back and revisit it and look at it. So very, very cool stuff. So the title was changed to The Never Dead for Australian audiences as not to confuse it with the popular Aussie sex comedy World of Sexual Fantasy from 1976, which is also known as Phantasma with an F.
Whoops.
Phantasma.
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny that the title was totally changed in Australia for the purpose that there was like a damn near porn comedy based on this with Phantasma used as the title, and they didn't want that confusion going on there. Now, I was not aware of this either, but I did think that was a pretty cool factoid. And the films being so close to makes sense, 76, 79, it's only a 3-year difference. But I'd never heard the Never Dead title used, which obviously was only for Australia. But I had never heard that title, prefaced or anything in any of the other editions that I'd seen before or had heard of. So I thought that was a very cool fact, and I wanted to include that one.
Yeah. A piece of dialogue is used at the beginning of the song, Guilty of Being Tight.
Jesus. Say it like you mean it.
This guy here.
That's horrible. Guilty of being tight. All right.
Included in the stop.
Municipal waste. The municipally waste. She can't even get it out. She's going to need a breather. I'm going to get this one out for her because she needs a breather. So, a piece of dialogue is used at the beginning of the song, Guilty of Being Tight. Included in the Municipal Waste album, Hazardous Mutation from 2005. So, basically, a piece of dialogue from this film is used in a song from which I would assume is a metal album based on the album title and the song name. Typically, metal albums have song names and features like that, so I'm assuming that's from a metal album where they actually sample this. But I'll be honest, I have actually sampled Phantasm myself. Not just dialogue from it, which is fantastic, but also it's phantasmal, actually. Not just dialogue from it, but also the music itself. The soundtrack to the Phantasm films is fucking brilliant. And it's not just the theme either, the main theme. There's actually quite a few songs throughout the soundtracks that have a great sound to them. And they just sound brilliant. And I'm a big, big fan of the music on this album, on the soundtrack. And yeah, very cool to see that it's being used across different genres and it being used in metal. Very cool fact indeed. So that about wraps up all the information that we have on the original Phantasm. We're actually over an hour into the show already, and we haven't even touched one of the sequels yet. Before we even get into one of them, though, we are going to talk on our personal thoughts of the film and give our ratings on it and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right into this. So Phantasm from 1979, directed by Don Coscarelli. The first one of the 5-film franchise, and notably my favorite film, without a doubt. First off, let's get into the ratings. I'm going to, without a doubt, give this one 2 huge thumbs up. This one is an awesome film. I love everything about it. From the soundtrack, to the acting, to the villain, to the storyline, to the spheres, to the lurkers. There's nothing about this film that I really dislike. I think it's a very, very solid one. Especially for the year 79. It just stands out. It's a gem. From the time I was a kid, it always stood out to me as one of the most unique horror films because of the character, because of the storyline behind it. You know, it's not a slasher, it's not a supernatural, it's a mix of a bunch of different subgenres slathered together, and it's just fucking awesome. And I love Coscarelli's work, and I do have to say, I think this is probably his best to date. The OG Phantasm. I think that it really shows his chops as a director, and really gave us, you know, something that's just going to go down as an absolute classic. It definitely makes a lot of people's top favorites list, and understandably so. It's just a real timeless piece and very, very well done. I personally really, really enjoy this one. I'm glad to have this, and it finally just gotten the box set for it, which is how we watched it. We ended up going through all of them. I got a 5-disc collection that has all 5 parts individually on disc, including the Scream Factory edition of 2 in the box set, which I thought was very fucking dope. I was not expecting that, especially since it was just the disc and from a different company. Strange, but dope, because you get the extra features. But yeah, this one for me is just an absolute classic gem of a film. Really, really love it. You know, I could go on all day about specific things about the film that I like. I love the scene where you see the hearse driving and there's nobody actually driving it. I love the first time we see the tall man. The scene with him walking down the street and stopping and inhaling and looking up as he, you know, intakes the cold fumes from the ice cream truck. I mean, there's just so many cool scenes in that movie. You know, the way he walks even. You know, we talked about that, his walk being absolutely terrifying, and the clacking of his shoes against the marble in the mausoleum. I mean, there's so many cool little things like that about the character that really stand out to me that make him absolutely terrifying. So, for me, 2 big thumbs up. I'm a huge fan of Phantasm. This one is an absolute classic. Check it out if you haven't. What is your thoughts on the original film?
Oh, it's creepy. It was my first time. Yeah, guys, this is my first time. Fuck off.
Fuck off?
No, but the tall man definitely stood out to me in the beginning because of your painting or the
print.
The print you got, from...
Yeah, I have a tall man print from Joel Robinson on my wall, and she was always curious about who it was, and I said, you'll see one day when you watch Phantasm, and she watched Phantasm, and ta-da. Boom. Now she knows who the tall man is. And
he creeps me out. Not even just because he's tall, but his eye, like his look...
Yeah, boy.
Yes.
The way he like pops up one eyebrow and has like almost like a cross-eyed, like it's like one eye is like kind of like going. It's almost like the Debo thing, like where one eye is crossed but one straight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's super tall, and just the haircut we talked about.
Hair, yes.
The very creepy fucking hair, and he's just a creepy fucking character. And I think that's one of the things that makes this film so good. He's not disgusting or terrifying as a monster, because he's not a monster. He's fucking creepy in the same way that the original Michael Myers is creepy, and it pays homage to a different type of killer. Like, Jason's not really creepy, he's brutal. He fucking is brutal. Hellraiser is not creepy, he's brutal. You know what I mean? Freddy is not creepy, he's brutal. There's different types of killers, and for me, you know, he really stands alone, the tall man, as a very creepy character that really just drives that home. And yeah, Phantasm is just a real classic, and I can't say enough good things about it personally. What is your rating on this one?
2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up on this one? Okay, so we both give 2 thumbs up on this one. We both enjoyed this one thoroughly. That about wraps up our thoughts on the absolute classic Phantasm from 1979, directed by Don Coscarelli. Which brings us to the first sequel in the franchise, which is Phantasm 2 from 1988, also directed by the legendary Don Coscarelli. So we got a couple cool facts about this one, not quite as much about the first, but some good stuff indeed. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, this one blew my fucking balls right off. I did not know, but you know why I said that? I got that from Practical Jokers. I'm not even gonna lie. I totally just jacked Joe Gatto's shit. And when he's like, I can't remember what it was, but there's something about food. They're like, it'll blow your balls off. You remember that? I can't remember what it was. I think it was like I can't remember what the fuck it was. He's like, you gotta try this. He was in a restaurant, I think. He's like, you gotta try the lo mein and blow your balls off. It's just like, it's so funny to say something to blow your fucking balls off. Anyway, this blew my balls off when I read that Brad Pitt auditioned for the role of Mike in Phantasm 2.
I don't think I would have liked that.
Now, I don't think he would have been a fit for that role, and I don't think, honestly, the guy they even chose was a great fit for the role, and personally, I would have loved to see A. Michael Baldwin back to reprise his role again, which he should have been, as he was the only replacement through all 5 films. At any of the 5 films, out of any characters replaced, he was the only one, and that sucks to me. I wish they wouldn't have replaced him at all. I get why they did that. Like I said, sometimes you're just not able to have the actor doesn't want to be a part or whatever. I just wish that we would have got that. Unfortunately, we didn't, and we got some other fuckboy that took over the role. I don't like the guy that plays Mike in 2. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a fan of him. Yeah, I'm not a fan of him. I wish that they would have kept a different character. So, and not even like disrespect to that actor either. Like, I'm sure he's a great dude. Like, he's probably a cool dude. It's just, I fucking don't like that they changed out in the middle of the franchise. I then brought him back. Yeah. Like, it's almost worse to me.
No one was going to notice.
Yeah, it's almost worse that they brought him back. Because, like, it's cool that they did, and I'm glad they did in a way. But then also at the same time, it's like, how awkward is it? It's like, we're just going to act like this fucking guy that we hired last year doesn't even exist. He fucking is dead and gone. He's just fucking, fuck this guy. Your whole face is changing back to how you used to look as a kid now that you're an adult. Like I said, you can make the change from the kid to the adult with it being somewhat convincing. You're not going from fucking adult to kid and it being convincing. Get the fuck out of here, bro.
I don't want to see a grown man and little toddler.
Toddler. Damn, here my toddler tea. Oh, damn, he's in the toddler tea.
Anyway.
It's fucking terrible.
Reggie Bannister did all of his own stunt work for the film except the scene where he has to jump over a chainsaw. They wouldn't let him do that.
Yeah, now, I can get why they wouldn't want to let you do that, because if you fuck up and you
leg.
fall, I mean, it could be more than a leg. Could you imagine falling face first on a chainsaw? Or your fucking neck? Or your fucking wrist? Or your fucking, or your gut?
falling on a
Bruh,
chainsaw.
There's literally nowhere I can think of where falling on a chainsaw sounds like any type of fun at any point in your life. Never will you ever be like, man, you know, if I fell on a chainsaw today, my day would be a lot better. So, like, I get why they wouldn't let Reggie do that, but I thought it was very dope that he did all his own stunt work in the film, minus that scene. That is very, very cool. And also, once again, guerrilla filmmaking, saving a little bit of money, you know what I mean, on that budget. And I dig that. Any way that you can save money on a film when you're doing it, do it. Why not? Why would you want to burn up extra money? Mm-hmm. So, at around 1 hour and 11 minutes, there's a scene showing one of the tall man's henchmen smashing bone fragments with a hammer to be mixed with ashes and placed in an urn. The cremated remains are funneled into a bag labeled Mr. Sam Raimi. During production, director Sam Raimi made an appearance at a shoot for Phantasm 2. Raimi later directed Darkman in 1990 for Universal Pictures, who also produced Phantasm 2. So
I pointed that. I was like, hold on, did you notice that? And he was like, hold on, what? And I was just like, rewind, look.
Yeah, I didn't notice it. I didn't see it because it's a very quick shot.
Yeah.
But we talked before about how there's a lot of links and ties with Raimi and Coscarelli, and it's dope. I love when there's directors that do things like that. We talked about that before with, I believe it was Wes Craven and Carpenter. I think it was Wes Craven and John Carpenter that were doing that.
I think so.
Where they were having references to each other's films, and that's cool when two filmmakers can do that and you know, kind of have those little nuances in there referencing each other. I always think that's a very, very cool fact. So awesome stuff, and like I said, always cool to see you know, interworking relationships in the film industry with directors, you know, because Raimi and Coscarelli do have a very similar comedic horror eye for film, and that really shines through in a few scenes, and you can definitely see the influences from each other and each other's work. So very cool factoid for sure.
Yeah. Reggie Bannister's wife was present on the set on the day Bannister's love scene with Samantha Phillips was shot.
Oh!
I don't know how I would have felt about that. So, excuse me, bitch.
Why are you kissing my man? Defunct Teresa's angry. In case anybody doesn't realize, Teresa is Thomas's sister, our fictional siblings that are just fucking ridiculous.
They're twins.
They are the twins. So it's so funny. So yeah, Reggie's wife was present on the day that they did this scene, and yeah, I wonder how she felt deep down, knowing that Reggie was banging that out. The big Reg Master was smashing. Old Smasharoon Ski McRegster. Oh man, that is pretty fucking savage, straight up though. What is she there for? Moral support? You can do it. Here's a glass of water. Fuck. Oh, fuck. So, yeah, that's pretty bugged out. So, Reggie Bannister had quit acting in the 9 years between Phantasm 1979 and Phantasm 2, and worked for a time at a funeral home and assisted in embalming bodies. So, he actually want Phantasm for real, son. Yeah. Straight tall man in real life. Now, I think that's a really cool segue and an interesting turn of events to actually end up working where you worked as, or not worked as, but directly were connected to in such an epic film and a big film. Very interesting turn of events, especially after the success of the first film, which honestly I don't think at the time had the impact that it has now. I don't think that it, you know, was recognized as much as it is now as being such an important film for the genre and bringing forward what it ended up bringing forward, which it did bring a lot to the genre for sure, and it definitely brought that atmosphere 100% along with it. So very cool fact, and interesting that he went into that, but what a great tie-in.
At around 43 minutes, one of the headstones in the film bears the name Alex Murphy, a reference to RoboCop from '87.
Yeah, so obviously Murphy is the name of the main character / cop from RoboCop. Mm-hmm. So this is just a reference to that film, which came out the year before. I didn't notice that either, but I thought that was a pretty cool little factoid, and definitely a cool way to once again reference another film. So I did think that was very neat indeed. So after a time lapse of approximately 10 years, the project of a sequel to Phantasm from '79 was greenlighted and got financed by Universal Pictures, mainly because one of the main executives at the studio was a big fan of horror movies, as well as being Don Coscarelli's former attorney. So he kind of got lucky. Coscarelli had a double luck out with him being a horror fan and with being somebody that he actually knew, making it a lot easier for him to actually go ahead and pull off this film and make it a possibility. So there's a chance that if he wasn't a horror fan or wasn't his former attorney, we wouldn't have got a Phantasm 2 and wouldn't have got the green light on it. So I think that it's pretty dope that happened, especially after a 10-year gap and absence of the film from mainstream media for that long. To still come back and have another big film behind it is always dope to see.
Yeah. At around 1 hour and 11 minutes, one of the Undertakers can be seen filling a plastic bag labeled Mr. Sam Raimi with ashes. Ash is the name of the character played by Bruce Campbell in the Evil Dead series, directed by Sam Raimi.
So, we talked about this part, but the connotation to it that it being ashes and Ash being the character, I didn't even think about that. So that's just a whole nother level of that fact basically being explored. And I think that's really cool that there's a second little tidbit in there to kind of tie them together. Now, that's not something that I noticed personally, but in retrospect is a very cool way to include it and have something of that magnitude and interest in there. So very cool stuff. This is the first film in the series to be distributed by Universal Pictures. That is not very surprising, honestly. The first one not being through Universal makes sense. A lot of times when a film franchise is starting off, it's released to the director themselves, to their own company, which is likely what happened with this one. I do think that having Universal back, it definitely put Phantasm into the spotlight and made the sequels a possibility. So thankfully it was distributed by them and pushed by them. But the first one not being pushed by them isn't anything out of the ordinary. It's actually quite common for, like I said, a director or somebody involved with the film to push the film rather than a company being behind it when it initially comes out.
Due to the passing of the original sphere designer Willard Green in 1977, the newer, deadlier spheres, including the Ultimate Killing Machine Gold Spear, nicknamed the Rambo Spear, which I mentioned during the movie that I read, were created by Steve Patino and his then 15-year-old assistant, Steve Catranio?
Catranio, I think.
Sadly,
Steve Catranio, yeah.
Sadly, Steve Patino also passed away November 19th in 94.
Wow. So basically, both designers of both, renditions, or all renditions actually, of the spheres have passed away. So that is pretty shitty.
It makes me... because he passed away the same time the third one, so did he get a chance to see his work?
Oh, yeah. That's actually really interesting. If it's kind of same thing with Scrim, who did get to see the end of 5. So for the filming of the prologue sequence, Reggie Bannister dyed his hair black in order to look as young as he was during the last scene of Phantasm from '79, filmed 10 years before.
I was mentioning that, but it was the wrong character. Remember, I thought it was the Mike character.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's why it threw me off, because I was like, Mike dyed his hair? I was like, I never noticed it. But Reggie makes sense because having the darker hair. That does make sense. Now, they do a lot of this in films just for the simple fact of making somebody look younger. And they've done it with CGI nowadays. I know they did that with the Tron movie and a few other ones. Star Wars, where they did it with Princess Leia and things of that nature. So they'll do that to knock the age off, but obviously... Phantasm wasn't a huge budget film like that, Phantasm 2 rather, and in '88 the technology just simply wasn't there to really do things to that extent, with a lower budget especially. So It wasn't done that way. They try to do it more naturally by using dye and things of that nature, makeup and whatnot. But it definitely worked, and pretty cool fact that they just had him do that just to kind of, you know, set that age thing in there and for you to take notice of it. So very cool.
Done in a single shot. That scene was pretty cool though.
It was the explosion, but that to me, it is a cool fact, but also it makes sense because they don't
re-blow the house up.
Re-blow the house up.
I mean,
we rebombed it. No, you're not going to get multiple takes of blowing up a house.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing with blowing up cars and things that are very expensive. They try to do it in one take, and that's why it doesn't really surprise me, because I know they probably want the extra mile to ensure that it could be done in one take and done correctly in one take and look solid. So that totally 100% makes sense. Doesn't surprise me a whole lot. But that about wraps up all the facts that we have here for Phantasm 2. We are going to talk about this one a little bit and give our thoughts on this film before we roll into the third one. So let's go ahead and spend a minute and just chit-chat about this one. So, Phantasm 2 from 1988, directed by Don Coscarelli, just like the first one. This one basically follows up right where the first one left off and takes place literally the next scene, with a lot of the characters returning. However, we do get a different character playing Michael Baldwin's character of Mike, which is, I don't even know the actor's name, some fuckboy. That basically takes the role, and now Mike is some other fucking guy, and we have to pretend that this is Michael Baldwin, and we know it's not. We know it's not.
Oh.
We know it's not.
Hey
we
there,
know it's
fake
not.
Mike.
We know it's not.
Hey there, fake Mike.
Fake ass Mike.
How's it hang?
No, like I said, I'm not gonna fucking hate on the dude. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's Coscarelli's fault. It's the fucking studio's fault for forcing Coscarelli's hand to recast people. You know, when he tried to originally bring them back, they should have let him do that. Fucking stupid dickhead studios don't know what the fuck they're doing. Fuck aces.
Bleh.
So that's super disappointing that they made him do that, and we ended up losing out on that character. But I do like Phantasm 2. I don't think, honestly, it's not one of my favorites of the franchise. Like, I think it's a good one. I think they're all good. I don't think there's any shitty films in the franchise, but I don't think it's one of my favorites. I'm gonna give this one one thumb up because I like it. I don't love it. I think it is a good film. It's definitely worth watching. Definitely worth owning if you're a Phantasm fan or Coscarelli fan, or just fan of this franchise in general. But I just feel like it doesn't bring a whole lot more to the table than the first one did, and I don't think that the switching of the character was a good idea. I really wish they wouldn't have done that with the actor, and it kind of pulled me so much out of it that it just didn't really do a whole lot for me. And it's sad because I remember Phantasm 2 being a little bit better when I was younger, but going back in retrospect, I just don't think it's one of the best ones in there. Out of all the 5 entries. So, like I said, I do think it's solid. It's still good. It's just not great. So, one thumb up for me. What is your thoughts on this one?
I'm gonna give it the same rating. Like you said, it's good. It's worth the watch, but it's not it's not great, and it's not bad either. It's just like in the middle.
Yeah.
But yeah, the character thing. But then the house, the explosion was awesome. So.
The explosion was good, so we got a big boom.
Yeah.
But we didn't like the new fucking character, so... a lot of cool nods in this one and interesting facts behind it. It just didn't really nail it for us for being the follow-up that we kind of wanted out of a Phantasm film, I don't think. But still a solid entry into the franchise for sure, so we are going to both give a thumbs up each to Phantasm 2. Which brings us to the third one. We are getting to the halfway point of this franchise. This is Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead from 1994, also directed by Don Coscarelli. And we don't have a ton of facts on this one, but we are going to dive into what we have on it before we give our thoughts on this film and go into it. I did kind of like this one for a few reasons, but before we get into why we liked it and what we thought of it, let's go ahead and talk about some facts with this one. So... apart from reprising his role as the Tall Man, Angus Scrimm also plays the part of the doctor who opens Mike's eye to check his pupil with a mini torch, penlight, in the opening sequence. The nurse next to him is played by Kathy Lester, who portrayed the Lady in Lavender in Phantasm in the original. So that was pretty cool, and I noticed that too. having them play the dual roles and just using them in another light. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
Especially bringing back Kathy Lester to play that role again. Very cool nod to the original. And I love when they do that. Like, we've talked about that before, when they do nods to a previous film in the franchise or just to the franchise in general. It's always dope when they bring attention to it and say something about it. So I thought it was really cool that they ended up, including some, throwbacks to the original film by having Kathy come in and things of that nature. I really do like that and enjoy when they do that in a film. I thought it was dope.
Yeah. The character of Rocky, played by Gloria Lynn Henry, stands out as the only main female character in the Phantasm movie series not to die, nor to be a tall man's minion either.
Yeah, because the other one, if you remember, like, they either do get killed, all the ones that he, like, comes across, that Reggie comes across, they either get killed, or they have fucking Phantasm spear titties, or they're just out to kill. And, I mean, it's true, all the characters that he meets, all the females, and he tries to bang them all, and almost all of them are fucking either a minion, or they're gonna get killed, so... Rocky does definitely stand out in the franchise, and she gets brought back later on, which we'll discuss. So at around 1 hour and 2 minutes into the film, the flying hearse was performed by stuntman Bob Ivy using a 7-foot tall pipe ramp. He managed to get the massive hearse airborne, and it traveled over 160 feet through the air. Ivy later played the Demon Trooper in Phantasm 4, Oblivion, from 98, and the title role in Bubba Hotep from 2002. Now, I thought this was really fucking dope, this scene in specific. And we talked about this. Remember when it happened? I was like, holy fuck, that thing got some distance. That scene is, honestly, one of the most amazing action sequences in horror cinema. This fucking hearse fucking rolls. I mean, it's not even like a barrel roll either. It's like a fucking, like a spinning twirl through the air. The way it's like spinning like lengthwise, not widthwise.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
At around 57 minutes, the dream sequence where Reggie and Jody rescue Mike from the tall man's lair is the first time in which the four main characters in the series, Michael Baldwin, Reggie Bannister, Bill Thornberry, and Angus Scrimm were all reunited again on screen after 15 years.
So this was really cool. Basically, this is the first time that you get all the main actors together since the original, because it doesn't happen in the second one, where all of them are together on screen for another battle and showdown. And that's dope that actually happened again in this one. And it's surprising that it didn't happen in the second one, but it makes sense. Because you actually have a different actor, you know what I mean, playing the part in two. So maybe it did happen, but it wasn't the original actor. So it makes sense that they had that reunion. But very cool to notice that point in time, in that specific moment, that's the actual scene. So most of the shooting took place at night, forcing the cast and crew to spend several weeks of night in spooky locations such as a real mausoleum and a cemetery.
Nope.
Now I can say that we've stayed at some pretty wild spots. We spent the night at the Burkittsville Woods, where the Blair Witch killings and the Blair Witch occurred. When I say the Blair Witch killings, I'm referring to the very, very old killings from the 1800s. Obviously not the movie. The movie was fake fiction, but whatever. Still a very creepy place to stay at, and I could only imagine what it would be like staying overnight somewhere where there's a fucking straight up mausoleum or a cemetery and sleeping there overnight. That would have to be pretty unnerving and not a very comfortable sleeping situation, I'm sure.
I don't think I would have slept well.
No, and I can imagine the pranks were aplenty on set. Being somewhere like that, I mean, how could you not want to be fucking pulling a prank or doing something for a joke to scare the shit out of somebody in a situation like that? I would personally have to take advantage of it. I think that's fucking hilarious that they actually had to spend the weeks at night on these locations. I mean, I can only imagine the hijinks that went on.
At around 2 minutes, in the White Room, the camera pans from the tall man's corpse to the forked gate to reveal a new tall man emerging. Briefly, you can see the actor's reflection in the rightmost prong, as he waits for the right moment to pop out.
Yeah, so essentially you get a little bit of a continuity issue where they didn't quite make sure that everything was out because of a reflection. And that happens a lot of times with shiny surfaces, mirrors, windows, anything that's going to put off a reflection. It's easy to look past that, because if you're looking for something that's going to cause an issue with filming, you're not looking for reflections most of the time or smaller things like that. You're looking for something that directly affects it, and typically it's going to be something major, not a little reflection or something like that. It's going to be something that majorly affects it, and that is what happened in this instance. So this is just something that's very common. We've discussed this 100 times on here. This is just a continuity issue, but something that was overlooked and something that you can spot. So yeah, that's around 2 minutes into the movie, so that is super early in. So check that out and notice that in the beginning if you get a chance. That about wraps up the facts that we have for Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead from 94. Directed by Don Coscarelli. However, we are going to give our thoughts and reviews and ratings on this one and discuss it a little bit before we get into the fourth one, Phantasm 4 Oblivion. So let's go ahead and talk about this one a little bit. First off, I like this one more than 2. I think this is a step up from 2. I think the action is better. I think some of the sequences are really, really cool. I do like the sequence where you see them all hanging from the roof, even though you can tell some are tied to string. I think it's very cool, the concept. Angus Scrimm is a little bit more noticeably older and age in this one now, which makes sense. This is 15 years later. He was already kind of older to begin with when the first one, so it makes sense. But it fits the vibe, and it looks great. I like this one. I'm going to go ahead and give this one actually 2 thumbs up. I did really like this one a lot. I think that it does stand above the second one. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I think it's a great installment. I love that they brought back Michael Baldwin's character in this one, and you get the original cast reunited, and that sequence is in here with all the original characters reuniting as well. I even like the title, Lord of the Dead. I even like the artwork to the film. I mean, even little nuances like that are things that, you know, I enjoy about this film that stand out to me. So I'm going to give this one 2 thumbs up. Definitely recommend it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's one that I do own. I just recently got another copy of it in my box set. I already had the Anchor Bay edition, but now I have it on the box set as well. So very, very dope entry into the series, and one of my favorites. Just great horror action in this one, and really gives some cool story on the film. A little bit more on the backstory of things, and just keeps the chase going. And it also takes off where the second one leaves and keeps that continuity going. So, yeah, 2 big thumbs up for this one. I did like this one a lot. I enjoyed this one.
So, we have Michael Baldwin back playing Mike. So that's a good feeling.
Yes, it is.
And then you mentioned the spears and everything hanging from the ceiling. Like, I noticed them swinging. And I even pointed out that there was one that was swinging super hard. Just like you knew it was just like not happy about its situation.
Yeah, there was definitely some swaying going on. And you could definitely tell that it wasn't quite legit, but whatever. I mean, it happens. I mean, there's going to be times where things aren't exactly secured the way they need to be, and I think that happened with this case. They were attached to the ceiling, and it was noticeable because obviously it has a point of gravity, and that being, you know, obviously a circular motion, you could tell it's attached to the ceiling because it can only move in certain directions.
It kind of fit though, because they don't sit still when they hover anyway. They kind of like bounce.
Yeah, so. Yeah, they don't stay perfectly still. They do have kind of a little bit of movement to them, and I guess it's part of the reason why they did that as well. And that makes sense, you know what I mean? They wanted just to keep it natural looking and keep it realistic looking, and they achieved that. So, definitely a cool way to do it, and I still like that scene a lot myself. Yeah. But overall, what was your thoughts on this one? Like your rating on this one? Did you enjoy this one? Like, what stood out to you about this one?
The spheres, how many of them there were. Like, I thought there was only 1, to be honest. Like, it started off with 1, then it went 2, and then now there's like 50,000 of them floating above your head, and it's creepy because they're swinging.
Swinging balls above your head. It's creepy balls. I had to do it. Creepy balls anyway, swinging above your head.
2 thumbs up. Visual effects were super awesome too. So
yeah, I really like this one as well. So we both give this one 2 thumbs up. Both of us enjoyed this one. That about wraps up our thoughts on the third one, which is Phantasm 3. Lord of the Dead from 1994, which brings us into part 4. Now, this one I really fucking like. This is probably my second favorite one in the franchise. Before we get into it, though, I'm going to say that this one is from 1998. This one is Phantasm for Oblivion, also directed by Don Coscarelli.
It's as old as I am.
Yeah. And this is the last one directed by Coscarelli. David Hartman took over for Part 5, which is Ravager, in 2016. So, the last Phantasm by Coscarelli, Part 4 Oblivion. This one is really dope. So, at around 20 minutes, the scene in which the Demon Trooper drools yellow gunk into Reggie Bannister's mouth was shot 5 times. So, this scene is pretty fucking gnarly, and we talked about how disgusting it was, and how fucking... how nasty that goop is, the blood goop. We were talking about what they use to like make that, because it looks like it looks like the consistency of like eggs, and it looks almost like yolk in color, but I know it's not egg yolk because it almost is like an orange juice. Like it's very solid in color, like where egg yolk is a little bit more clear. So it's hard to tell exactly what it is, but it's fucking disgusting looking. And I think we talked about before that when they shot that, the stuff was pretty disgusting tasting in one of the scenes, and they, to do it over and over again was fucking gross. So I thought that was pretty raw for him to have to shoot that scene over and over again, and God bless Reggie for doing that, because it was definitely worth it. That scene is very cool because it odes to one of the earlier films where they had the same thing. I can't remember which one, but I think it was the second one. Which had a very similar scene. So it was very cool to see that tip to the hat and done. Definitely like that.
The dagger scene in the film is the same prop used in the original Phantasm.
Yeah, now that's another cool thing where they bring back something used from the original film and they utilize it now. And I love when they have, odes like that, or when they use things like that, because only diehard fans or people that research the film or watch the commentaries or go that extra step in a film are going to know that type of stuff and see that type of stuff and notice it. And that is a part of the beauty behind cinema, is you can have so many hidden treats in there and Easter eggs for your fans and viewers alike. And I think that's always cool when they do that. And I always appreciate a director that spends the time to do that. And Coscarelli has always gone the extra mile to make sure that things like that are in his films. And I just really think that's a really cool thing to do. This is the only movie in the Phantasm series that is not end up with a character being pulled through a glass. So basically, it doesn't specify at the end either. So I guess at some point all are pulled through glass. Now, I recognize they did that in some of the other sequels for the end, the original being the most notable, but I didn't notice it was in every one of them. So that's a cool little thing that they try to link with all the films minus the fourth one, but very cool indeed.
Yeah. The song that plays during the end credits, Have You Seen It, was actually composed and performed by Reggie Bannister and his band under the name Reggie B and the Yiz Wailing Ya Doggies.
Yiz Wailing Ya Doggies?
It is included in their 1996 album Fool's Paradise.
Wow, so I'm going to have to look into that. I didn't realize, you could tell pretty much that Reggie knows how to play because him and Jodie are seen playing throughout the films, throughout the whole franchise, and especially in the original. So I think it's very cool that they have an actual song that's featured, that's from Reggie, included into the film. What a great way to do that and bring him on board for that. I think that is cool. And I will have to look into that album and see if I can find that track. In the original script, Tim's character, portrayed by Kevin Connors in Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead, from 1994, was savagely eaten alive by the dwarves at the beginning of the movie. But the budget constraints prevented the scene to never be filmed.
That sucks balls.
Yeah, so you don't get a chance to actually see that, unfortunately. But it makes sense, if something is too costly to make it look good, I'd rather it not be in the film than it being in the film and look like total shit. Yeah, so it was probably just a directorial choice that they had to make and sit down and buckle down for it. And like I said, I'm not a hater that they did that. I understand why they did it, and sometimes it just goes that way. You can't always win them all. You know what I mean? You have to have certain things you got to fight for in a film and things that you really want to have and aim for. And that's what they got to do. And unfortunately, that was not one of the things that they really needed to fight for or felt they needed to. So it got left out and hit the cutting room floor. So we never got a chance to get that part of the film, unfortunately.
Yeah. Don Coscarelli originally wanted to call this installment Phantasm Forever with a PH. Yeah. But ultimately rejected that particular title because he thought it was quote-unquote too cute.
Now, I get this because of the, I guess, the doubles and all, and yeah, the alliterations. But I think that's a cool title, too. I could see why the title would get rejected and why they would stray away from it, maybe just because of the comedic element to it, of it being a double, and maybe that being the reason why he did stray away from it. But me personally, I do like the title, and honestly, it wouldn't have bothered me if it had been called Phantasm Forever, but Oblivion does really fit and does have a more visceral, guttural kind of sound to it, so...
He only likes the title because it's an alliteration, and he loves alliterations.
Yeah, she's trying to put me on the spot, but yeah.
I mean, it's obvious. Look at your fucking name.
Klive Kraven, yes. I am a big fan of alliteration, and I do like it because of that. It's partial to one of the reasons, but yeah, it's not the only reason. I just think it's a dope title, and it would have fit because it was originally intended to be the last installment. Yeah. There was a big gap until they hit part 5, so it would have worked. Now, at around 5 minutes in, Angus Scrimm was suffering from laryngitis during the filming of the opening scene. That's why his usually deep tall man voice sounds more like Orson Welles.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, now, I recognize this. I think this is when he says that the services are about to start. I think that's the part they're referring to. Actually, wait, no, this is 5 minutes in on part 4. So, actually, I'm not 100% sure what specific scene they're referring to, but I'll have to keep an ear out next time I watch this one to the vocal tone in it, because I would like to hear that.
Yeah.
I think it's funny they compare it to an Orson Welles voice, though.
Fred Muro, composer of the emblematic main theme as well as the music for all the movies in the Phantasm series, died shortly after the film's release.
Damn, so... It seems like a lot of people's deaths are tied to this film. Both designers of the spheres, and the composer of the music, and the Toll Man himself. So there's 4 notable deaths in this franchise. Now, granted, the franchise started in 1979, so it has been a span of some time. But it seems just like there's a lot of death involved throughout the history of this franchise, which is sad. And shitty indeed, and unfortunate for him to not be able to see the 5th film reach its, theatrical release, or whatever release it had. I don't believe it was theatrical, but see its release. It's unfortunate he wasn't able to see the release of the last film. But that theme is so iconic. You know what I mean? That din 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 din. Just that melody is so fucking iconic. And I absolutely love that theme and that sample, and just, I think it's brilliant, brilliant playing, and so simple, but so atmospheric and iconic. And, we included it in the intro of the show, and I'm just a huge fan of that sound, and Miro's work on this soundtrack is absolutely top notch. So unfortunate he did not get a chance to see the 5th film hit release. The sequence with Reggie Bannister pulling up to the abandoned, rundown motel in the desert was shot without permits. Moreover, said motel was actually an old shack that was redressed to look like a motel. So, yeah, they basically just did straight guerrilla filmmaking on a location that they didn't have permits for, ransacked the building and made it look like a motel, even though it was just a shack, and bam, pulled off the scene. And now that, to me, is a real testament to skill, and just really cool to, just fucking go in and get the shot done like that. Very cool little factoid about them working on the film that I thought was really interesting, and something I personally would do myself. If I had an opportunity to get a shot and it required a few minutes of guerrilla filmmaking, fuck it, it's worth it.
Yeah.
If you get the shot and it looks great, then why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you want to fucking push for it? So, just with even doing music videos and shit, we would do that all the time. You want to get that shot. So, I totally understand them doing that and taking that risk because, like I said, sometimes that risk is worth the shot that you get. So that's interesting that they did that, though. It blows me away. It wasn't even a motel, it was just a fucking shack, and they did it without permits. That's great.
Once again, the entire crew was forced to spend several long nights working in the cold, clammy, real mausoleum of Angelus Abbey in Compton, California, among the entombed dead.
Yeah, so once again, brought down, I believe it was part 3, they did the same thing, where they had these similar conditions where they were, staying at the mausoleum and at the cemeteries. And once again, you know what I mean? A lot of the filming was in those type of locations, so that's where they ended up camping out at. So
yeah.
I could imagine the nights there, like I said, being very interesting and prank-filled and eerie at that, because the location is quite gothic in its setting and surroundings, so I could totally see that being something that would stand out to people as pretty fucking gooned out for sure.
I wonder if any of them slept in the car, and if they did, if they locked the doors for some good measure.
Yeah, that is pretty fucking intense. I could only imagine. So as a sequel to the movie series, an official Phantasm comic book was released, edited by Ex Machina. It featured a script written by Steven Romano and artwork, coloring, and visual effects by Mike Broom, Noah David Henson, and Ricardo Bernardini. Yeah, Bernardini. Ricardo Bernardini. The first issue was available only in a limited edition of 2,000 copies, all of them autographed on the cover by Don Coscarelli.
Ooh, we gonna have to look for one.
Yeah, now that is something I'd love to get my hands on.
Yeah.
It sounds really fucking dope, and I wonder if it follows a separate story as well. This is once again a very limited piece that I would like to find, much like that book as well from Coscarelli's mom, which is also interesting. But this is one that definitely caught my eye and definitely interests me. I think it would be really dope to have a comic book signed by Coscarelli based on Phantasm. That's just dope to me.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool idea that they had and something that they ended up releasing, and I'd love to get my hands on that. So good to have my eyes peeled for that Phantasm comic for sure.
The movie's working title was Phantasm for Infinity, which I mentioned earlier, but it was changed to Phantasm for Oblivion during the post-production.
Now, yeah, I think I remember reading somewhere that the reason for changing it was marketability. They felt that Oblivion had a more appealing feel than Infinity, and more of an ending vibe than Infinity, which makes it seem like it goes on forever. Mm-hmm. So I think that was kind of the concept, is they wanted more of a closing chapter in it, because I don't think a Ravager was originally planned. I think that the Phantasm 4 was supposed to be the final film, and it was Coscarelli's last film. So I think that was the original intention behind it, but I can't speak for sure, but I think that's the general consensus on it. Yeah. That about wraps up the facts that we have for Phantasm 4. But we are going to talk about the film a little bit and give our thoughts and rating on it before we get into the last film of the franchise, which is Ravager. So let's talk about Phantasm 4 Oblivion from 1998, directed by Don Coscarelli. My thoughts on this one personally, this is my second favorite film in the franchise, as I stated. I think this one is an absolute gem. I love the kickbacks to the original and the follow-up of the story. Once again, this one follows the storyline frame for frame from the previous film. And directly leads off, and I just love that they have all these scenes from the original film throughout it. That to me really set it off, and it was all new footage that was never before released in the first film, but it was footage from the era of the first film, stuff that was shot for that was not in the movie. And that to me made this one such a fucking standout, and it pieced together a lot more the background and the story. Just a lot more. And you also got some of the background on the tall man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And got to see what he was previously and his backstory. And this is the first one that really explored that. Mm-hmm. And, once again, you also have the original cast reuniting again. You have Scrim back as the tall man. And, Reggie's back again. It's just... It's a real standout film in the franchise, and it gets everything right that it needed to, especially this far along into the franchise. It revitalized the Phantasm franchise, in my opinion, and definitely brought a lot to the table. My rating on this one, my personal rating, is 2 big thumbs up. I thought this one is, like I said, is right up there, is one of the best ones in the franchise. I'll give my breakdown when we go over the franchise review at the end of this. I'll go ahead and give my breakdown on which ones I think are exact order as far as the best. But Oblivion is my second favorite, so it ranks high up there. I think it's definitely a dope one. If you haven't checked this one out, I highly recommend it. It would have been a great closer if it would have been the last one, but it wasn't. They still did another one, and we are going to talk about that in just a minute. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get some of your thoughts on Phantasm 4. What did you think of this one, and what's your rating?
Well, first of all, I give this a 2 thumbs up.
Two thumbs up from Teresa.
No, but they put because I remember you saying through the first film when they recorded it and it was over 3 hours and they cut a lot of it out. They went back and used them for this movie, and it was
the footage up.
Yeah, like Michael could not have gone back into physically as that kid. So
Reggie
they
too.
Basically, that and then,
so much younger looking. Yeah, like
you couldn't have done that physically. It's physically impossible to go back in time.
Yeah, and they could have done CGI and shit like that, but it would have took away from it, I think. So it was amazing that they did that. And we also mentioned that earlier that there was a lot of footage that was lost from the original film that didn't get put in there, that wasn't used in either of the two. Yeah, quote unquote lost. But I would really love to see the footage that did get lost from the original. It burns me up a little bit that they did lose that shit, but what are you gonna do?
Or so they say.
But I really did like this one. So what is your rating of this one, and what really stood out for you in this one?
I think I said it before. I give it 2 thumbs up, but this was one of my favorites. I can't really pinpoint a specific favorite. Yeah. But what I liked about it was multiple spheres. They had one scene where thousands of them were chasing. I can't remember if it was Reggie or Mike through the hallway.
One of the opening scenes. Yeah, that was dope, and that was one of my favorite scenes too. The CGI in it actually looked really great, I thought, for that scene specifically, more so than even some of the CGI you saw in Ravager. Now, this was a newer entry, so CGI was a little bit more popular this time in the late 90s, but I really did like this one. I thought it was great. 2 thumbs up for me for this one. 2 thumbs up from her. We both highly recommend this one. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Phantasm 4 Oblivion from 98, directed by Don Coscarelli. That about wraps up our thoughts on part 4, which brings us to the last one in the franchise and the newest one, which was a first-time view for both of us, and that is Phantasm 5 Ravager from 2016, directed by David Hartman. Now, this is the first film out of any to not be directed by Don Coscarelli. And it definitely does show, because we talked about the techniques are quite a bit different in the filmmaking. There's a lot more angled and lighted shots in this one, and it doesn't have the cohesive atmosphere necessarily that Coscarelli's has. Now, I will say that, the film is solid overall, but it does have some questionable things in it, and I think that if Coscarelli would have been involved a little bit more with the direction, those questionable things probably wouldn't have been in there. So, I'm a little bit torn on that, but I do think that even with having a different director behind the lens, it still turned out to be a solid film. Although I will say at times it does feel almost like a fan film. You know what I mean? It almost feels like it was made by a fan. I'm sure David Hartman is a fan deep down, but it felt more like a fan film than I wish it would have. You know what I mean? If it just didn't feel like a Coscarelli film. And it's not, and rightfully so. I understand why it's not. You know what I mean? He didn't want to be involved for whatever reasons. But I wish he would have did more than just produce it. I wish he would have been involved in the direction of this film. And unfortunately, he was not.
Unfortunately, this was Angus Scrimm's last film.
Yeah, now Angus at this point, I would assume, would be in his 80s, late 80s, early 90s at the time of this film. in 79, he was, I believe, he looked like he was in his early 40s. Mm-hmm. So let's say he was just 40 in 79. 89, 99, 09, 19 would be 40 years. So 3 years ago, roughly, in 2016, when the film came out, yeah, that was over 35 years. That's a big chunk of time. That would have put him in even if he was 40, he would have been 75, 76. Mm-hmm. So he was probably in his 80s, maybe even 90s, by the time he passed away. So he was quite a bit of an older gentleman when he did pass. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet Angus at a convention, and that was always on my list. I really, really wanted to meet the tall man in person. And have him say, boy! Like, seriously, that really was, like, something that was high up on my list. And unfortunately, he passed away. And this is his last film appearance. So it's cool to have that, to own that, his last film appearance, but it's very sad as well. Great actor, and what a legacy he left behind as the tall man. So, with no prior production news, Phantasm Ravager was announced to the world as a completed project on March 26, 2014. A teaser trailer was released the following day. Now, I remember hearing about this film coming out a while ago, and I was super excited. And it didn't come out until 2016, and it took me forever, even after it came out, to finally get around to seeing it. Like I mentioned, this was the first time that we actually had got to sit down and watch the movie. And I'm glad we did, because it was an enjoyable flick, although I do have my quarrels with it. We'll get into that at the end of this segment. But, yeah, it was around for a while, a couple years before the actual release. 2+ full years before it actually came out. So, quite a long time the movie stayed in limbo as a trailer and as an announced project. But, as a completed project, it's weird that it sat around for a few years before it actually did meet a release. I guess they were shopping distributors. In fact, I think I vaguely recall something about them shopping for distributors now that I think about it. But yeah, it took them a while to get that film out.
This was the first Phantasm film in 18 years, the last one being released in 1998.
Yeah, Phantasm 4 Oblivion. Which, that's a big gap. That's a very big gap in the franchise. There was a 9-year gap from 1 and 2. And then you had a 6-year gap between 2 and 3. And then just a 4-year gap between 3 and 4. And then a huge 18-year gap between 4 and this one. And now, if we get one anytime in the future, it's probably going to be quite a few more years, probably 2020 or beyond before another one comes out. But you bet your bottom fucking dollar I'll be the first one in line to get a ticket to that shit or to support that film when it comes out, because I am a huge fan of the franchise as a whole. Love this series, so I'll definitely check it out if they do another one. But there is no news on that at the moment, at least that we have to report. So, Wow. At around 21 minutes, the hospital bed scene along Reggie Bannister was the last scene Angus Scrim filmed as the character the Tall Man. Now, this was really ironic and sad to me that his last scene on film is him in a hospital bed. That's the last scene that he actually filmed. Just a weird irony. Now, this is not the last scene that he appears in the film. Throughout the film, he appears more, because I originally thought, well, damn, if he, 21 minutes in, if that's his last scene, he must not be in the rest of the movie. He is in the rest of the movie, but that they must have filmed out of sequence.
Yeah.
Or put the film in a different sequence when they filmed, because he does appear in shots later, but that was the last one that was filmed. And I believe that is the last footage of Angus Scrim, period, in film. So, very interesting, ironic, and sad way to, that to be his last thing, and then he does end up dying right after that. And in his last scene, he's in a hospital bed. Just thought that was very ironic and a little bit chilling, to be honest with you.
Fortunately, Angus Scrim was shown Phantasm Ravager shortly before he died.
So at least he did have the solace of getting to see the final finished product and project. And that's something that, you know, especially for older actors, I'm sure that's something that they do think about in the back of their head. If, you know, if you're quite a bit older in your 70s, 80s, 90s, realistically, a film does take years to come out and release. And that's something that I'm sure that they think about in the back of their head, whether they'll live to see a project actually come to fruition and have a release and hit theaters and be a success or become, in this case, a cult classic. I mean, the franchise of Phantasm is a cult classic. 18 years went by and they still dropped another sequel. I mean, this film franchise has been going since 79 and is still strong. That's longer than Nightmare on Elm Street. That's longer than Friday the 13th. That's longer than Child's Play. That's longer than Hellraiser. I mean, the only franchise that I can think of that's a major one that has lasted longer is Halloween, and that's only by a year. So, I mean, Phantasm has been around for quite a long time, and it's a true staple to the horror community. I don't care what anyone argues, it truly is. Everything is subjective in opinion, but I truly do believe that it's a staple in the horror community and one of the greatest franchises, period. And you know, this one here is no different. This one is another great entry into the series. I just don't feel that it's the strongest, you know, in the franchise, but it has some really cool things that it does bring, without a doubt. There's just certain things that I have quarrels with, but like I said, we'll get into that when we actually talk about our thoughts on the film. So at around 20 minutes, the blanket that Dawn puts on Reggie in the cabin is the same one A. Michael Baldwin's character had on his bed in the original Phantasm.
That's funny.
Now, this to me is fucking awesome. This is once again an original nod back to the OG film and Coscarelli getting paid homage to by something from the original film being utilized in a new film. And Coscarelli's not even the director of this, so that's David Hartman paying homage to Coscarelli. And I love that. I really think that is awesome and cool of him to do that and include that. I didn't even personally notice that, but when we went back and studied up on this and read that bit of trivia, I did think that it was really cool and thought it was a great way to include, you know, Coscarelli's, you know, film into this, you know what I mean? The original into this by having Michael Baldwin's blanket used in here. I thought that was really fucking cool.
Yeah. At around 30 minutes, during a scene where Mike is visiting Reggie at a rest home, Reggie says the line, "There's a new threat, Mike. Have you seen it?" This is probably a reference to the song Have You Seen It, performed by Reggie Bannister, which plays over the Phantasm for Oblivion and credits.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Now, we talked once before about his music being used, I believe, in part 4, which they paid homage to. Yeah, the part 4 where they use a song from Reggie's group, and they also utilized it also in this one, a different song, well, a reference to it. So that's cool that they have things like that. I'm always, like I said, I'm always a huge fan when there's little tie-ins and things that kind of interconnect to different films and link them together, and the Phantasm franchise has done that repeatedly, and I think it is just a really cool thing when they do that. And Coscarelli and Hartman can obviously see that, and they've utilized that tool vigorously throughout these films over the years, all the way even to the newest entry. And that shows and shines through once again here. So, just awesome to see that once again and utilized in the newest of films. So the last fact that we have here is Reggie's occupation in the first film was an ice cream man, and coincidentally, a real ice cream truck would often drive by the set with its music playing, forcing the production to stop and wait for it to pass.
He did that on purpose.
Now, this is just a cool one just because of the irony in it that, you know what I mean? One of the characters, it was an ice cream man, and because of an ice cream man, they have to slow down the set and the filming, and I just thought that was a really cool factoid that I wanted to include in the show. And I think that's just awesome that they basically had to stop because of what the character is. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean,
he probably turned around and was like, "Dude, I'm not an ice cream man anymore.
I have quit my job." Just the irony in that is just beautiful, and I think it's really, really cool, and I wanted to include that one because that is just a great fact that definitely stands out to me when I was going through these, because I had to sift some of these facts out because there was certain ones that was just too many for certain films. So I had to shift out a few of these facts actually to shorten up the length of the show. But that's something that I wanted to make sure got included because I did think that was pretty cool and just a funny little tidbit. But that about wraps up the facts that we have for Phantasm Ravager. However, we are going to give our thoughts on this film and our ratings on this film, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into our thoughts and rating of the entire franchise as a whole, and then we'll go ahead and move into our next segment. So, without further ado, let's talk about Phantasm Ravager from 2016, directed by David Hartman.
I don't like it.
Yeah, now she said flat out, she's like, at the end of this one, she's like, I don't know, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it because...
Okay, hold on. I mentioned where, like, Reggie is in a rest home in one of the facts I just read. He's in there because, like, they make it seem like it's all mental, like none of it ever happened, and it's like, wait, so what? This is just all for nothing? Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Now, I think that's the false illusion of them, like, utilizing that to their advantage because it shows scenes going back and forth, and he's like in reality, and then he's not, and he's in the oblivion hell kind of place, and then he's back in the home.
It's like he's in and out of consciousness, like
or alternate realities,
yeah.
or parallel universes, and we talked about the possibility of it being different personalities, even multiple universes, it being an illusion in his head, and us just seeing different perspectives. You don't really know exactly what it is, and it's never really 100% described. And that movie leaves on a cliffhanger and leaves it open, might I say, for a part 6 for sure.
I still don't like it.
See, and then at the end, you also have Reggie in the back alive in the vehicle when they pull away. Even though they show him having, like, the heart issue and looking what looks like to pass away and what's real life, quote-unquote, in the Ravager world or in the Oblivion world, what it looks like, he is alive in the back of the seat and well, and they're just traveling together. So it works as an ending to the film franchise, I will say. But I don't know if it's necessarily the ending we would want right then and there. I'd probably like to see one more film with a finishing off of the Tall Man. I don't know if there's any footage of Scrim to do that or make that possible. But I would probably like to see a little bit more to finish things out.
Here's what I do want to say. Like, I don't know if anybody is going to hear this. I don't care if you do. Whatever. But if you guys do decide to make a 6th movie, don't, like, if you don't have footage of, like, some of the, like, original characters and whatnot, and you have to use CGI, don't overdo it. I don't need to see, like, Angus Scrim's face, like, you can tell it's digitally,
CGI
like,
enhanced,
yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of that either. I don't think any of us want to see it utilized like that. I don't mind the CGI being utilized on the spheres and things like that. I wasn't a fan of how the blood in this kind of spurt out of the... Yeah. I talked about this. It didn't come out in a stream. It spurt out, like, chunky and, like, splatters. It wasn't, like, a constant bloodstream, which looks just creepier and fucking... Because it makes you think it's, like, sucking your blood out quick. The spurts, you just, like, it's something drilling in and just chunking you up, like... Eating away, drilling in.
Like, it's just allowing your blood to, like, drip
in. Yeah, the other
there,
shit is, like, straight lobotomizing you. Like, fucking sucking all your blood out of your fucking flesh. So, I thought that was, kind of shitty. They didn't have that. I was hoping to have that OG look, and that's one thing that it didn't deliver with. There's a few action sequences that were a little shoddy and shit, and some questionable acting. But overall, I did like Ravager. I'm going to go ahead and give it 1 thumb up. I thought it was a great effort for a new director hitting the film and bringing into the franchise something new. I do think that it was great and paid homage to the other films, and it was great seeing more of an end to the franchise as a whole than Oblivion gave. But I do believe Oblivion's a much better film all around. I did like Ravager, so I am going to give it 1 thumbs up. What was your thoughts on this one?
I didn't like it.
She still just says, fuck this movie.
I mean, like, yeah, it was good, and I like that it came from somebody else's point of view, basically. But then at the same time, it's like, don't make this shit seem like it's not even real. Like, you're not even real.
Oh, no. Like, fucking David Hartman, you fucking prick.
So, if I had to give it a rating, though, I'd probably be neutral. Like, I can't give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then at the same time, it's just like...
I feel that. I've given a neutral rating before, too. There's some movies that you feel apathetic about. Like, you could care less either way. You don't want to hate on it because it's not terrible, and you don't want to give props to it because it's not great. So you kind of fall in that spot where it's just like, it's whatever. And I totally get that. But That about wraps up our thoughts on Phantasm Ravager 2016, from 2016, directed by David Hartman. We both give this one, well, I give this one thumbs up. She's going neutral, so this gets one thumbs up from us collectively. It's definitely worth a watch, and if you're a fan of Phantasm, it's definitely worth an own. You can find this one in a lot of places. I bought it on a box set. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I haven't seen it streaming anywhere else, but it is a dope one. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this segment before we go ahead and get into another fresh segment is going to be our thoughts on the franchise as a whole. What we thought about all 5 films as a collective piece of film. Now, I will say that collectively, I think it's a great franchise. It spans and has a lot of growth throughout it and ups and downs. I will say it does kind of end on a low note with Ravager, but it starts on such a high note with the original Phantasm that it's hard to match that bar again. As for the second one, I think the second one is solid, but I don't think it measures up to the first, and I don't think that even 3 and 4 it measures up to. 3 is great. I think it's better than 2. I don't think it's as good as 1, but it's cool to see the original cast back in that one, and I do like some of the scenes in that. 4 really stands out to me as being one of the better ones. It's my second favorite one of the franchise, and it does everything right. It really gets it right. It has well-used CGI. The backstory is explained a lot more. You get a lot more information on the Tall Man and the history of the sphere and what they are and things of that nature. And then when it comes to 5, like I said, I think 5 is probably my lowest rated one, although I do give a valiant effort to it and I do respect what it does. That's my kind of overall thoughts. So ratings for me on these is going to be best is original Phantasm, right under that Phantasm 4, under that Phantasm 3, then Phantasm 2, and then Phantasm 5 Ravager. So that's my personal ratings of the 5. I think they're all good in their own rights, but obviously I think the OG is the best, with Part 5 being the worst and the others scattered throughout. Close second for Oblivion, which I think is very standout as well, but the OG just kills it in every aspect. That's my overall thoughts. I'm giving 2 thumbs up to the overall franchise. I think it is dope as an overall piece, and I never thought that it got so corny that it was bad, which I can't say for a lot of different franchises. So I'm giving 2 big thumbs up overall to the Phantasm franchise for me. What are your thoughts on the overall series?
Overall, my rating right off the break is 2 thumbs up. But then at the same time, right off the break, if we're doing like number 1 being the best and like 5 being the worst, number 5 is going right under 5.
Yeah.
Right off the break.
Yeah, you're not a fan of 5. What would be your number 4? Which one did you feel was a little bit better than 5, but still not great?
2.
2. Yeah. Okay. What would be your next one? What's your number 3?
3.
So 3 is your 3. Yeah. And then let me guess.
Yeah, 1 and 4 is my 1 and 2.
Yeah. So basically the same rating as me.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And you know what? And I see that too. I could totally see why, myself voting the same way and picking the same way. I could see why you picked that, because that's how I view it. You know what I mean? That's how I personally give the ratings out. And for their own reasons. I mean, I think that all the films bring something to it. But there is reasons why things are picked and chosen like that. So that about wraps up our Vital Organs discussion on the Phantasm films. Obviously, this has been quite a long one because we had 5 films to talk about, and we wanted to go into depth on each one of these. We still have a shitload left of the show. I know we're pushing almost 2 hours and 15 minutes in right now, and we still have about half the show left, at least content-wise, so don't go nowhere. We have another great segment coming your way in just a moment after these brief sponsor messages coming all over your earlobes.
Whoa.
Maybe they're not coming on your earlobes. I like, not like actually coming on your earlobes, like the horror movie is coming on you. That's not
you
good.
make yourself sound so bad.
Why did the movie come on you? The movie just came on your life.
Oh no.
We'll be back after this.
Burkitt's College is the premier dance school in the country. Dancers dream of being accepted into the academy. Maya Burns was given that chance.
My whole life I've been dreaming of going to this academy. And now it's finally happening. I can't believe it.
The staff at Burkitt's are not only educators, they're witches and warlocks. She's about to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. She's about to witness the secrets of the coven.
Quickly, grab the traitor!
Two-stepping into theaters this spring.
11 girls dancing in yellow furs.
I would be very careful about who you share secrets with, my girl. Very careful indeed.
What's new for you to view? Find out this week on Netflix Best Picks.
Wow. And we are back with another segment, and this is Netflix Best Pick for the week. And this week we got one that I absolutely love. This is a horror comedy classic of modern ages, and that is 2010's Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, directed by Eli Craig. Now, I gotta say, this one I'm a huge fan of. I turned you onto this one, and you saw this a while back. This one is just great. I love the premise in this. I think it has one of the most original stories in it, and I've never seen anything like it done, to be honest. And the way that they're pitted and viewed as these fucking serial killer, backhills, fucking murderer, rapist is brilliant. Like, throughout the whole film, they're pitted as that and viewed as that because of misunderstandings and just things being taken the wrong way. And the message in the movie of never judge a book by its cover is very eminent and permitted throughout. And it's definitely something that for me stands out and made me think, damn, that was clever. And a great way to do it. I liked both of the dudes that play the main characters, Tucker and Dale. I thought they were hilarious. They definitely made me laugh throughout the film. I'm hoping to see them in other things. I believe I've seen the thinner guy in some shit, but I'm not 100%. But, man, it was just a really, really good film and a really well-done comedy horror. If you like things that are a little, like, sloshy, but also very well done. I mean, the CGI and the effects in it are phenomenal. It has very brutal kills in it. And the comedy to it and the twist to it is absolutely brilliant as well. I really enjoy this film. I personally can't say enough about it. I'm giving 2 big thumbs up to this one and saying definitely check this one out. Obviously, it's our Netflix best pick. So it is streaming on Netflix. I believe it's still on there right now as well. Very dope flick. Check that one out if you can. What were your thoughts on this one?
You know what my thoughts are. I mean, the other day when we talked about it, when he decided to, like, he's like, oh, let's do Tucker and Dale for a Netflix best pick. I'm like, no. No, Thomas.
Why did you not want to do it?
I don't know. Like, I did like the movie, don't get me wrong. But then there's other Netflix movies that were a lot better.
See that? Okay. See, this is where we're gonna have some fucking beef up in this badge. Hey, motherfucker. Okay, so this shit kills me inside. So, how do you hate on Tucker and Dale vs. Evil?
I don't hate on Tucker and Dale,
no,
but
fuck
I do
that. We need
think
answers.
There's movies that are better that we could have chosen.
I need
for
answers.
Netflix.
I need answers right now. This is
Answers about
fucking.
what?
This is fucking garbage. I'll shut this whole fucking show down right now. I'll fucking burn this entire fucking house down. Just flames, ash, nothing. There will be nothing left besides the abyss and the visceral end. Jesus. So, yeah, she's not a big fan of Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, which blows my balls off. This one's gonna blow your balls off.
If you want to hear what I thought the Netflix best pick should be, and we talk about this in our body count reviews, I think Mercy should have gotten that.
Mercy was dope, but I don't know. I think that I would rather recommend Tucker and Dale to people than Mercy. I think if they haven't seen either one, Tucker and Dale brings more to the table of originality than Mercy does. Mercy is a fucking home invasion film that's been done 100 times. It's good. I'll say Mercy's good.
By a church, though?
Well, now that you just gave away the ending for somebody that's never seen it, spoiler alert, hashtag she done fucked it all up, bruh. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't ruin it that much. She just gave away the whole ending and ruined it for anybody. It's all good. It's okay. She doesn't care about you guys. She doesn't give... Look. She doesn't care. She doesn't give a flying fuck. She gives two shits. I'm the one that cares. I'm the one that loves my followers and supporters and fans and listeners. I love you all. You're all special to me.
If he loved you, he wouldn't be talking so much shit.
She doesn't care. That's why I care.
Oh.
I care for her and me. I double care. I care too much.
Oh, yeah.
I'm too legit to quit, bitch.
Oh, fucking yeah.
Kogan. So yeah, I mean, I guess we have a differing opinion on the Netflix best pick, but I like the Netflix best pick, and I'm giving this one 2 thumbs up. What is your thoughts on this one? Are you gonna hate on it and say it doesn't even deserve a thumb up?
It does deserve, like, 1 thumb up.
Like, one thumb up.
Little nub.
Little nub. Get out of here.
1 thumb up, yes. If I had to give it anything higher, I'd probably wouldn't. But.
Jesus. Okay, so she's giving this one 1 thumbs up. I'm giving it 2 thumbs up. I'm personally recommending this one. She's hating on it and talking shit and saying check out Mercy. So
okay, here's what he said. When I told him that we should have picked something else, and he was like, "Oh, why don't you name a better movie, a better horror comedy or whatnot?" And I'm sitting over here like,
she's over here
you
like,
have
ooh.
Shaun of the Dead. You have A Haunted House.
A Haunted House sucks balls.
I like the first one. The second one sucked. The first one was good.
You have Scary Movie's better.
Yeah,
Scary Movie's better, and that's not even amazing.
But then you have Meet the Blacks, and then you have...
Shaun of the Dead's alright. I like Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead is one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, that one's solid, but we're getting off topic and off task here. Damn it. So anyway,
I told you
we were talking about our Netflix best pick, which is going to be Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. However, she's a hater on it. Whatever. I'm vouching for this one. I'm saying check that shit out. Enjoy it. It's fucking dope. It's on Netflix, so make sure you give it a watch.
We'll see.
That wraps up this segment. You fucker. That wraps up this segment. We're going to go ahead and keep it moving and get into our next one. Don't go nowhere unless you're getting them nachos and them Doritos and
going on Netflix to find better horror comedy.
All right, I'm going to go fist fight. I'll be back in a little bit. Don't go nowhere. We're about to get real.
This one, that one, this one. That one, this or that, or 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 this better, I like that one, gotta pick one.
Pick your poison.
Alright, I just kicked her out down a flight of steps and picked her up. Her skull is wide busted open and she's bleeding to death slowly, profusely through
Somebody
a hole
call
in her
911.
cranium. She's dying slowly.
Alright, anyway, this is your Pick Your Poison, and right off the grate, we have 2 movies better than Tucker and Dale, so
Yo, you're talking all kinds of shit now.
Alright, for your Pick Your Poisons, we got The Human Centipede from 2009, directed by Tom Six, and The Human Centipede 2 from 2011, also directed by Tom Six, which again, right off the break, is better than Tucker and Dale.
Such a fucking hater. Okay, so basically this is a battle of 2 sequels. Or 2 films, one the original and the sequel. Human Centipede by Tom Six versus Human Centipede 2, also by Tom Six. Now, this is a tough one for me personally because I do like all the films in this franchise. I do feel that the first 2 are the best out of the 3. But, man, the first 2 are so great equally in their own ways, but for different reasons. You have more characters in the Centipede in the second one. And then you have that black and white editing plus the creepy character of Martin. But then you have Dr. Dieter in the beginning, Laser Dieter the actor. You have the doctor in the first one that plays a complete fucking nut psycho with a smaller centipede but a much more original concept because it's the first time it being done. Mm-hmm. If I have to say which one I think has more of an impact and which one is probably more iconic, I definitely think that the original takes that title. If I'm saying which one is more gross and more disturbing, I think the second one takes that title.
Definitely agree with you there.
Now, if I'm saying which one I feel is my personal favorite out of these 2, I'm going to have to say I think I like the first one more. I think the second one has more brutality and is probably more gory and just more sick. But I think the originality of the storyline shines through in the first one and is a more shocking piece because of not knowing what it was going into it. However, I do feel that the second one embarks on that journey a little bit further and takes you down a rabbit hole that maybe not everybody wants to go down. I think that it has some really fucking sick elements in there and some real brutal stuff. But for me personally, if I'm going with which one I feel is my personal favorite, I'm going to say for this Pick Your Poison, I'm rocking with The Human Centipede from 2009, directed by Tom Six. And I'm going to go ahead and give 2 thumbs up to both of these as well, because I feel that both of these are absolutely just savage modern day classics. And they do not compare at all to the third one. The third one is way under in ratings next to these. Just because I think they went way more comedic with it. And these first 2 are just savage as they can possibly be. But yeah, overall, I'm going to go ahead and give my vote to The Human Centipede, the OG. That's my final vote, my final answer. I ain't phoning no motherfucking friends because I ain't got any. I ain't using no 50-50 because I don't know how to narrow shit down. And I'm also not going to ask the audience because there's nobody to talk to and y'all ain't going to hear this shit for a few hours. Because it's the same day and we're recording today and we got lazy and we recorded just a few hours for this show. But we're going to have it out. I promise you. Anyway. Back to the subject at motherfucking hand. I'm giving my vote to The Human Centipede. What is your vote and your thoughts on these 2?
If I have to give it a vote, I think I'm going to go with the OG as well. Although, these movies creep me out because you left me watching them by myself.
Yes.
When you went to work.
Yeah, these movies, she saw these by herself while I was working, and most of the time we watched shit together. Very rarely did she watch shit on her own, but I'd seen these already, and I was like, go ahead, check them out, let me know what you think, and she was like, you're a fucking piece of shit. Why would you have me watch? I texted him
while he was at work, and I was like, what do you have me watching?
She's like, the man had a centipede put in his butthole. Why did this have to happen?
Yeah, that was pretty fucking disgusting. That scene will forever scar your fucking brain if you've seen it. It is very volatile and just fucking gross as shit and absolutely disgusting. But yeah, this one is a real interesting Pick Your Poison because this shit is shitty. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
This shit is
I
shitty.
got quiet.
It's just disgusting. It's full of shit. That was a shitty pun. Feed her. Yes, feed her. Feed her. Oh, feed her. It's so fucking gross. Old shit farts right up in her mouth.
You see how excessive he gets?
Excessive shit farts in her mouth. With an F. Mouth.
Not mine.
No, not your mouth.
I don't play that mouth.
I would hope fucking not. Old Shizer mouth. Old Shizer centipede. That should be the Shizer centipede. The Shizer. That'd be the German version. The Shizer centipede season ties. All my German friends are like, you fucking prick. You have a shitty German accent, and we don't eat shit. You eat shit. Stupid fucking American. It's all good. I'm just being a dick. And I'm fucking mainly German anyway. Most of my fucking genetic makeup is German, so.
Well, that's nice to know.
It is. I'm a German fuck. German-Irish, baby. The German-Irish ogre. So, yeah, that is our thoughts on the Pick Your Poison. We both are voting for the Human Centipede OG to be the victorious winner in this week's Pick Your Poison between the Human Centipede from 2009, directed by Tom Six, and the Human Centipede 2, directed by Tom Six from 2011. Both of these solid dope flicks and entries into the trilogy, which we will be doing a show on these down the road as well. So you can look for a Centipede show down the road. And who knows, maybe we'll have the Human Caterpillar out by then. And we can really get fucking gross with it.
Or the Animal Centipede.
Oh, yeah, your concept. the Animal Cracker Centipede.
No, not even the animal crackers.
I know, the real legit animal centipede.
Man, I'm waiting for it. Maybe they'll take like a zebra and like a hippo.
Get out of here. That's animal patchwork. Animal reanimator. Reanimator.
None of them are
Reanimator
dead.
Animals. Remanimal.
None of them died though.
It's pretty fucked. But that wraps up our Pick Your Poison segment for this week. We're both rolling with the Human Centipede. We're getting close to that 2.5 hour mark, so we want to go ahead and keep the rest of the show rolling. We still have a few things coming your way, including Poll of the Week, along with last week's results, the final chapter, and of course your body count reviews. So don't go nowhere. We'll be right back in just a moment after this. We are watching you through that window in your front of your house. I'm standing there by that bush.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The bodies are starting to add up. Body count reviews.
And we are back with another segment of Body Count Reviews. And this week we got another 6-7 movies to bring your way, varying all the way from 1984 all the way up to 2016. So a nice little bit of range in film here. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. The first one here is going to be Clown House from 1989, directed by Victor Salva. Now, this one is infamous in a lot of reasons, and mainly because of the director, and we've talked about this before when we discussed Jeepers Creepers, that Victor Salva is a pedophile and a sick fuck, and no, I do not condone what he does, and I do not fucking think that it's okay, but I'm still gonna watch fucking any movie that I want to watch. Sorry, that's the fact, end of the day. There's a lot of people that are gonna do shit you don't agree with in life, but you're gonna end up watching a movie of theirs or watching a fucking TV show or hearing a song or whatever it is. You know what I mean? There's so many artists that end up doing shitty things. Like, there's no way to tell. And even if they do get outed for that or whatever, I mean, for me, it's not going to make me hate that fucking film.
Yeah.
I might look at that person differently and view them differently, but I'm not going to view the film differently. Me personally.
I feel like what they do and whatnot has no impact on the movies or the music or
yeah, it doesn't change the media.
Yeah.
The media that they've produced. And, you know, you can sit there and argue and say it does or whatever. The only thing it changes is your viewpoint on it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's understandable. Like, your viewpoint probably will change. But for me, the viewpoint on the film doesn't change. The viewpoint on the person changes. And that's where I stay with it. Like I said, I do not respect Victor Salva as a person, but I respect the films that he's put out, if that makes any sense. I think the films he's put out, you know, pretty solid films, but I don't, you know, agree with what he's done or condone what he's done in any type of way. And people will fucking argue with you and say, well, if you buy one of his films, you fucking condone it. Like, no, I fucking don't. Like, if you want to say that shit in my face, I'll gladly knock your fucking teeth out, and then you can say that. Or try to. You can gum it out. You know what I'm saying? So, I can't stand that shit. I really can't fucking stand that. People will argue that shit so fucking hard. But anyway, controversial comments aside, let's talk about Clown House. So, Clown House is pretty interesting. This one is basically some escapees from a mental asylum end up getting a hold of clown outfits from a local circus and end up going to a house and fucking with the kids that live there, these three brothers. Mm-hmm. And shit just gets crazy from that point on. This one is alright. I thought that the use of actual clowns being, you know, just mental patients and that twist on it was really cool. And the kid was already afraid of clowns, so the twist on that just made it that much more intense. I do think this was a dope one. I actually did enjoy this film, and I don't own it. We ended up seeing this one on YouTube, I believe. We streamed it. It's definitely worth checking out. I'm going to go ahead and say this one gets, I don't know. I don't really want to give it a thumbs up, honestly, because I don't think it was honestly worth a thumbs up, but I don't want to hate on it either. I don't think it was shit.
Get neutral.
I'm going to go neutral, and I'm going to say this one's worth checking out. Probably not worth a own or a buy. I'll probably get it eventually just because I'm a completionist. But yeah, Clown House from 1989. What was your thoughts on this one?
It was a little cheesy, but I thought every clown movie is cheesy to me because of the fact that it's a clown. Like, just cheesy in that perspective.
Yeah,
but
I get that.
I mean, killer clowns, man. Freaky.
Killer clowns.
But other than that, the whole movie was pretty good to me. So I do think it deserves at least a nub.
You're giving it a nub? What is it, half a thumb? What is that?
Just
a nublet?
Just the bottom half of my thumb.
Up to the knuckle. From the thumb to the knuckle.
That's a nub.
A thuckle. Like... Spinal. Thuckle. Spinal in 3.
But yeah, the clowns were creepy. I think if it was me, I mean, they would have got punched in their throat or hit in the head with a baseball bat.
Wow.
But you know that.
Punched in the esophagus. Jesus Christ. So thankfully she's not killing and punching clowns in the fucking throat. Moving right along. So you're going to go ahead and give this one, what, a thumbs up?
Yes.
So you're giving this one a thumbs up. She liked Clown House. I wasn't huge on this one. I thought it was okay. It's worth a watch. I don't know if I really recommend this one like that, but it is something we watch. So Clown House 1989, directed by Victor Salva.
Next movie we have is The Mutilator from 1984, or there is another name for it, Fall Break or something. It was like the
yeah. Fall Break. Yeah, when the movie came on, it actually says Fall Break,
and I was like, "Are you sure this is the right movie?"
we had to double check and see it was the right movie, but it has two titles.
This is directed by Buddy Cooper and John Douglas.
Okay, so The Mutilator from 84. Now, this one is one that I had seen a lot about and heard a lot about. This is a first-time watch for me as well, and this one was just over the top with the kills. Like, I thought the kills were cool. There was some really cool original ways to slash and slice.
It's the deaths, guys.
Yo,
They're
the
so
one
excessive.
kill. Yo, there's one kill in this movie, and I think anyone that's seen it knows exactly what I'm talking about. The dude gets the, I think it's the circular saw up from, like, the dick area up the chest, and he's fucking, like, shaking and writhing and, like, standing and, like,
and he's doing it for like 30
like,
seconds, and he's not dying. Like, it's the longest
just standing there,
death
just like, oh,
ever.
whoa. Like, if you look at his lips when he's talking, it's just like, whoa, no.
Like, it's so excessive. Like,
is there a bug attacking us right now, yo?
The same fucking stink bug from last
Oh, it's a
week.
stink bug? Okay, if it's a stink bug, I don't care.
But anyway, it's like, it's the character you wish would die already. Like, that's how long they take. It's like, really, like, just fall down. You want to go over and, like, push them over.
Yeah, the deaths in this, you know, are a little exaggerated, but the one especially is just, man. Like, how long is you gonna stand there and get chopped, bro, in your fucking chest bone area?
Like, he was just like,
He's not even like after a while, like, there's no, like, noise even coming out of him.
He becomes silent, and he's still like,
yeah, it's just super fucking gooned out, man. Like, what a weirdo flick. But it is a great slasher as far as delivering them kills. So if you're looking for that high kill count and that blood bucket type of vibe, you're definitely gonna get that from Mutilator.
Or if you're also looking for some laughs because of the excessive deaths in this.
yeah, it delivers on multiple levels, so
Yeah.
it's definitely one to check out. But The Mutilator from 84 is one that was a first time watch for me, and I would recommend checking this one out. I'm gonna go ahead and give this one, I recommend checking it out because of the brutality, but I'm gonna be honest, the kills do make it really ridiculous, but I'm still gonna give it a thumbs up. I will recommend this and thumbs up this one. So The Mutilator. What's your thoughts on this one?
If I could, I'd probably give it like a thumb and a half.
A thumb and a nub. A thub.
And a nub. And that's because, like,
yeah, I'm about to say, explain that. Explain almost giving 2 thumbs up to fucking The Mutilator. Because I didn't even want to give the 1.
Like, the deaths,
I was struggling to give that 1. I'm not gonna lie.
Like, to me, like, it made me laugh. I classify that as like a horror comedy. It's a, like, come on. Like, you saw how I cracked up. Like, that one death was just too, like, it had me dying.
That death in specific, I think, is notorious among fans as being, like, so jokingly bad. It's just ridiculous, but...
Well, I don't even think it's just that, but there was, like, one where, like, he gets the other dude gets, like, a pitchfork through his throat, and he's still, like...
Oh, yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, ouch. Oh, my God. If you get stabbed in your throat with a pitchfork and you look the killer dead in the eye and you just say, ouch, that might be the funniest cinema ever. That reminds me of that Tommy Wiseau dude from The Fucking Room. That, you're killing me, this is unbelievable. Oh, you're killing me. It's so fucking over the top.
But you know what I mean. So, like, there's that half. Because I died.
Yeah.
Like, if a movie can make me laugh and it's, like, not even intentional to make you laugh, but then it still looks cheesy, and I laugh.
Oh, it's cheesy.
Hey.
It's straight total cheese fest.
I loved it.
It's definitely cheesy, but yeah, okay, so we're both giving thumbs up to the Mutilator. We both enjoyed this one. She gave a nublet to it.
Nublet.
I don't even know if I want to allow these little nublets.
You have to announce nublets. I mean, not from anybody else, but
your
from me.
Your 0.5 rating. You can't do a whole.
I can do the nublets
1.5
because I have small fingers.
Small fingers.
So.
Fingers. So, that brings us to the third one, which is Cheerleader Camp from 1988, directed by John Quinn. Now, this one was pretty cool.
It was confusing as well.
This one basically is a straight up and down slasher, and the kills in this one are pretty fucking brutal. There's a ton of allure to who it may be with in regards to the killer. They don't really allow you to really get that until later in the film. But I will say that I thought that the kills were pretty well executed in this, and I thought that they were pretty original. I mean, they're nothing mind-blowing, but definitely a step above the Mutilator kills, I would say, as far as the deaths. Maybe not originality so much, but the deaths themselves, because I do like the weapon in the Mutilator. But in Cheerleader Camp, I feel like it's just not quite as original, but more, more of a better executed kill, I guess. Because the executions in the Mutilator is, whoa, 35 minutes I'm getting, cut up, fuck, wow.
Ouch.
Ouch. Ouch. You're killing me. You're eating me alive inside. It's so fucking bad. Oh, man, but... yeah, Cheerleader Camp was alright. I'm going to go ahead and give this one thumbs up. It's worth checking out if you haven't, but it's nothing groundbreaking, like I said. What was your thoughts on this one?
I got to give it a thumbs up too, Tolly, because, there were some hateable characters in there, and some characters you just want to punch in the throat.
Chop, chop. Pow, pow. Right in the neck bone area.
Okay, there's that. But then they start off as, the lovable characters. So that makes you hate them even more because you gave your trust to them.
You betrayed my trust, you sack of shit.
Yes. It's I trusted you weren't.
I thought you weren't a killer.
Now it's I don't like you anymore. You're not my friend. So.
You came in here and betrayed yourself to be something that you're not. And I do not appreciate it.
Anyway, but overall, one thumb up because the kills were, like you said, well executed. So
indeed. So we both give one thumbs up to Cheerleader Camp. This one's all right. Nothing amazing. I believe we checked this one out on not YouTube. Netflix. This is YouTube. Yeah, we streamed this one as well. This one was all right. Like I said, I'm giving it the thumbs up. It's not the greatest, but it has some worthy kills. So definitely check it out if you're a slasher fan. That is Cheerleader Camp from '88. My big birth year. My birth year.
Anyway.
This
next movie is amazing because I'm a big fan of anthology and I really like this one. Is Tales of Halloween from 2015, directed by various directors, and it was too many to list.
About a dozen.
But every single one of them deserves their
shine.
own little personal award.
You deserve your shine, my good ladies and gents, because you've brought forth an anthology tale. An anthology tale of epic proportions.
And then you have Adrienne Barbeau as the radio station host, and
there was a lot of other references in there. Landis was in there.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a shitload of really cool nods to horror actors and directors and just people in the genre throughout the film, and just a ton of cameos.
Not only that, but then there's the stories themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They definitely bounce off of other horror movies. There was one called Friday the 13th, but it's not exactly what you think.
Actually, I don't even think it was Friday the 13th. It was something similar.
Friday the 31st.
Friday the 31st,
Halloween,
yeah.
But then, because they make you think that it's the same as Friday the 13th, but then there's a twist and a little bit of cuteness and dangerousness and all a little package. That. It was little blue Smurf looking guy. He was cute. And then there was one story where innocent kids were going trick-or-treating, but then, like, this little group of kids come up because the house they go to end up, like, I guess we find out that they're kidnapping these kids and torturing them, like, while they're alive and whatnot, and these are the friends of the most recent to come and, like, rescue them. And then it's like, oh, I trusted you guys, and you broke my trust once again.
Oh, we thought that you were not going to be the bad man. You were the victim.
Like, I felt so sorry for them in the beginning because, like,
it was brutal the way they killed them.
The kids started, like, stabbing them randomly and beating them. And
raw.
And I was like, oh my gosh, why don't they get up and run? And then, like, the end comes around, and I'm like, I'm glad they got what they got.
These motherfuckers going down, and I'm glad.
No help from me.
Yeah, and you know, I like this one too. I think there's a lot of great segments in this one, and I think that it really stands out. And I think there's 10 stories total in this one.
Yeah.
And you know what? The movie flies by, even though I think it's about 2 hours long. It's really well done. There's just something about it that really rings to me. And, you know, I'm admittedly a big anthology fan too. Going back to Creepshow, the Twilight Zone movie,
Tales from the Dark Side.
Tales from the Dark Side. Yeah, I mean, there's so many that are just great anthology films, and this one really, really blew me away. This one blew my balls off.
Oh, jeez.
Blew my balls right off.
Blow your balls off.
Yeah, this one was just really dope, and I highly enjoyed this one and recommend this one. It's just got a lot of really good stories, excellent cameos, solid acting, great makeup effects. Just really cool. The pumpkin story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The killer pumpkin. You know what I mean? There's so many fucking cool stories in this one.
I felt bad for the kid.
Yeah, the kid gets fucking destroyed.
He's like, oh, no. I'm like, no, not the kid.
But this one is a perfect Halloween film. This is one that I 100%. This is like, honestly, this is one that I would recommend 100%. Watch this right after you watch or right before you watch Halloween on Halloween. This one is that movie that should be viewed every year. It's right there, man. It really is. It fits the holiday 100%. It's a Halloween Day movie for sure, and it's definitely a dope one. I'm giving 2 big thumbs up to Tales of Halloween.
Same here. Like I said, anthologies are my kryptonite. So there's that.
Yeah, so we both like Tales of Halloween. That's 4 thumbs up total from us. This is definitely one you got to check out. This is one that I do not own yet. I believe we saw this on some streaming service. Netflix, yeah. This was on Netflix. It might still be on there, but this one is absolutely awesome. Highly enjoyable. Highly recommended. Tales of Halloween from 2015. That brings us into the next one, which is The Perfect Host from 2010, directed by Nick Tomney. Now, Tomney. Hey, Tomney. But The Perfect Host, man, this one is bugged the fuck out because you get to see the main actor, and I can't remember the guy's name. I know it's not Kelsey Grammer, I don't believe, but I can't remember the guy's fucking name. But you have this main actor, and he's in a role that you're not used to seeing, and he's absolutely batshit insane. And you know, you this movie takes a twist where the tables are turned, and then you have this character that is straight up just having this party in his head where he's having all these guests over and bringing people to the house, but obviously he's not doing that. He's imagining that. He's hosting this perfect party. He's the perfect host.
Yeah, basically think of Split, but with, it's not even like multiple personalities. It's like, there's a name for it though.
I'm not 100% sure the name.
There's
maybe
an actual medical term
fucking
for it,
insane.
But anyway,
it's
like,
probably a accurate name. And be an accurate one.
You're insane. Okay?
I'm not insane.
Oh, but
I am not inviting people over thinking I'm having a party.
Anybody who watches horror movies is insane. So boom, case closed.
I think the entire audience is fucking batshit crazy.
We're all insane.
Oh,
so
no.
We should have like a little insanity party.
Insane party. Everybody gets a free slice of cake and a bowl of punch.
No, that party would be something serious. Anyway, moving along.
Seriously, bro. How you gonna take all the cake and all the punch?
It's like, hey, put it down. I see you over there.
I see you with the punch bowl. The bowl of punch.
Anyway.
So yeah, The Perfect Host. This one is definitely an interesting flick, and it's more of a thriller than horror, but it definitely has the elements of horror in there. So we did want to include that one. Thriller fits honestly in the horror category, just like sci-fi and a lot of other things related to the genre do. I mean, it's almost a subgenre of horror. It would be thriller horror. So this definitely fits that category in my mind. So The Perfect Host from 2010. I'm going to go ahead and give this one thumbs up. I thought it was cool, but I wish to see a little bit more brutality and more insanity from the main character, to be honest. But it's a pretty good light-hearted kind of horror movie. I don't think it's completely too fucking raw for most people. I think you can show it to most heads and they'll be fine enjoying it. So it is worth a watch. What is your thoughts on this one?
I give it 2 thumbs up because you're a jerk.
Damn. Well, fuck me. I guess I lose in life. She said, well, your evaluation of this film is inadequate and we don't appreciate it.
Your opinion just doesn't even matter, bro.
Wow. I'm just getting destroyed left and right here. I might as well not even talk.
Anyway.
I'll be silent for the rest of the fucking show. I won't say a fucking thing. I'll burn this house down and be silent. Second time I'm burning this house down. Goodness gracious.
Anyway, well, because okay, first of all, you have the twist. There's a dude who's playing victim. I mean, granted, he is a victim, but at the same time, it's all a show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have somebody who's innocent and trying to help, or you think they're innocent, just trying to help, and he invites the dude in, lets him use the phone, and then he decides, oh, well, I'm about to rob you. And the other dude's like, no, the fuck you're not. We have guests coming over, and you're not doing anything. We want you to stay for dinner. And all of a sudden, it's just where's all your guests? Oh, you don't see them? They're here. It's like, what?
Where are they? Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he's absolutely insane, and I like
it's
to
amazing,
see.
Though.
Yeah, I like to see that batshit insanity in somebody. Like I said, that always makes for the scariest horror films when it's a person, not a monster, because it can happen, and it's much more real and much more relatable. As far as making it terrifying and not so much as scary, it makes it more terrifying. But yeah, The Perfect Host is definitely dope. I'm gonna give that one 1 thumbs up. She's giving that one 2 thumbs up.
It is on Netflix if you want to check it out.
That's Trey thumbs up between us, and that brings us into our next movie, which is
Last Shift from 2014, directed by Anthony DeBlasi.
So, Last Shift from 2014. Now, this is one that I had seen originally and I turned you on to. I thought this was a really cool one. Essentially, there is this cop that's working at a police headquarters, and she's there all by herself, and she's getting stalked and haunted down by these cult demons / ghost apparitions that are haunting the prison where she is at. And the story just unravels from there. But I think it's really cool, and I think it's very atmospheric. I think the look of the family when they show them at certain times looks really demented, and the backstory is really fucked up. I enjoyed this one. I really did like this one. This was one that we also saw on Netflix. I believe it's still on there right now. It's a really, really good one. I'm going to actually go ahead and give this one 2 thumbs up and say that this one is not just worth a watch, but worth a buy if you're a collector. I'm trying to get my hands on this one. I do not have this one on DVD, but it will be one that I do try to get eventually. I really like this one. Like I said, I thought it was dope. I think it's very grimy, and I think that it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. So definitely check for that one on Netflix. What did you think of Last Shift?
I'll give it a 1 thumbs up because I think you're excessive. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my!
I
can't win tonight. I'm 2 for 2.
Game over.
Game failed.
Honestly, it definitely was creepy. It gave me the creeper, skin crawly
Creeperton
shocks.
vibe. Yes.
But
Meh.
meh. If I give it a rating of 1 thumb up.
A little thumb.
A little
nub it up.
Half a thumb.
Half a thumb. Good lord. So not even barely. You want to give it a thumbs up. Barely is essentially what you're getting at.
Hashtag sorry.
So you wasn't a fan of this one, I guess. You wasn't a big on Last Shift. Now, I like this one, so we have a little difference of opinion on this one, but I personally liked Last Shift. I would recommend checking this one out. I thought it was very dope, and I really did enjoy it. And that brings us into our last one.
Here it is.
Which is the last one of this body count review, which is going to be Mercy from 2016, directed by Chris Sparling.
Now, this is the movie I was ranting on about earlier that I said that I should have thought would have been the Netflix fucking best pick. But no, Mr. Obnoxious over here didn't want to agree, so... that.
No, I think Mercy was dope. I liked Mercy. I thought it was a dope film. It was almost as dope as how you just hit your hand on the table and you're in complete pain and you're trying not to say anything, but I noticed it. But I thought Mercy was really dope, and I actually like this one. Now, I will say, I still don't think it was as good as Tucker and Dale if I'm comparing. That's why I picked that one for the Netflix best pick. But I do like Mercy. I think it's a really dope film, and I think it's a Netflix original. This is a home invasion type film with a twist and a religious plot kind of underneath of it. But a really cool one, and I thought that it was really grimy. I'm not huge on how it ended, if you remember the ending on it.
Yeah.
I was not huge on that, but I did like it, and I definitely think this is worth a watch. I don't own this one, but it is one I'll be keeping my eye out for to get my hands on. I thought it was alright. I'm going to go ahead and say I'll give 1 thumbs up to this one. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. It's definitely worth a watch. Like she said, it is on Netflix, so if you have an account, make sure you check it out on there for sure. Like I mentioned, it is worth a watch at least. I'll probably buy it if I ever get a chance to, because I did enjoy it enough to do that. But yeah, I still don't think, like I said, I still don't think it was as good or even better than Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Whatever.
But what is your thoughts on the film Mercy?
I loved it. You already know. I told you I should beat you down right now. But, like, that twist. Like, come on. Okay. There's, like, sympathy in the beginning. You have the sympathetic and you feel bad for everybody because the mother's dying. Okay. But then there's just like, oh, well, here's like an asshole family member here. I don't know what she's planning. And, oh, look, she looks sneaky over there. It's just like...
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with the family members and trying to figure out who you might think it is or who you might think it's not. And then there's obviously the twist that shatters everything and it switches it all around. But I do think that that's part of filmmaking, is you're going to have those asshole characters to balance things out and to really...
throw you off.
To throw you off and make things seem a certain way even if they're not a certain way. And Mercy definitely achieves that, and I do, like I said, I do think it's worth a watch. So check that one out. Mercy from 2016, directed by Chris Sparling. It is worth a watch, and it is our last one in this body count reviews. She gave this one 2 thumbs up?
Yes.
She's giving this one 2 thumbs up. I'm giving this one 1 thumbs up. I think it's worth a watch. That's 3 between us. So check this one out if you haven't yet. It is also on the Netflix, the big Stream Master Flex. So give that one a view. Let us know what you think in the Facebook group. We are always open to hear your guys' thoughts on film. That is, after all, what we're all here for, right? We're here to talk film. So... that about wraps up the body count reviews this week. We'll obviously be back with another 7 fresh movies for you. And next week, we're having the Christmas episode. So expect some Christmas delights coming your way. Woo! We just opened up a package. This is a little side note. We just opened up a package with Black Christmas. And we're talking the OG Scream Factory release as well on Blu-ray. So that's one we will be watching. Maybe tonight. Maybe tonight we'll get into that Silent Night, Deadly Night. We have some great fucking films that I just picked up. We're going to have a ton of fun going through these Christmas classics. I'm super amped for next week's episode, so make sure you tune in for that. But don't go nowhere, guys, because we still have the poll getting ready to come your way, the results from last week's poll, and our final chapter. We're almost hitting 3 hours here, and there's still more to come. So don't go nowhere. We'll be right back in just a minute after this.
Wake up, kiddies. There's no time to sleep. It's time for the poll of the week.
Okay, so we have our poll of the week, which I'm going to start off with the results from last week. Episode 7. Episode 7, which was the Feast Trilogy, which was an amazing... frickin' franchise, yeah?
Franchise trilogy. It's a trilogy.
Frilogy. Woo, for doodle. Okay. What was your favorite modern horror TV show? We had 14 votes on Stranger Things, which I kind of saw coming because that is amazing. I voted for that one myself.
That was the top.
And then we had 3 votes for American Horror Story and The Walking Dead. Yep. 1 vote for Bates Motel, 9 for Ash vs. Evil Dead, and Dexter, so that was a tie there.
Mm-hmm.
I know you voted for Dexter, right?
Yes, I did. Dexter was my vote.
We got 1 for Slasher, and 1 for Hannibal, but then we have 0 for the Scream TV series and From Dusk Till Dawn, and I should punch whoever didn't vote, which was probably everybody, so I should punch everybody, including myself, in the throat, for not voting for Scream, because that is a good that is a good TV show.
I watched a few episodes of it, and I wasn't mad at it. But I didn't get it far enough to really see so much of the mask, and I wasn't a big fan of the look of that mask.
Instead of the regular mask, basically it was a face surgery.
Yeah, I'd seen it. I just wasn't huge on it, but I saw the first few episodes. The first few episodes were cool though, from what I had seen. Although I heard this 3rd season coming out is supposed to be a lot different. But like you said, my personal vote was for Dexter. Stranger Things is a real close second for me. I seen 1 season of American Horror Story and really liked it. I seen Slasher's first season and really liked it. And that's about it. The other ones I haven't seen a lot of. I saw part of the first episode of Walking Dead and fell asleep twice. Twice. But I do want to give it a chance though, because I feel like it was unfair both times because I was tired as fuck. So yeah. I do want to eventually one day give it a chance, but they keep coming out with more seasons and it keeps me from watching it because I hate watching things like that. I like to do it all at once if I can. So I get that. But yeah, my personal vote in this one was for Dexter. What was your personal vote in this poll?
I voted for Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. Yeah, Stranger Things is dope. She hasn't seen Dexter. I have it on box set, most of it, most of the seasons, and a lot of it. I know it's all actually on Netflix, so I need to go over and show you those one day. But the Dexter show is absolutely amazing, and that is on Netflix. So check that one out if you haven't. A lot of these shows are actually on Netflix. Obviously, Stranger Things is a Netflix exclusive, so that's on there. AHS is on there. Walking Dead is. Bates Motel, Slasher. From Dusk Till Dawn, Ash vs. Evil Dead just hit Netflix.
Scream is on Netflix.
And I don't know about Hannibal. That's the only one that I'm not sure if it's on there. But the rest of these are actually on Netflix. So check these out if you haven't seen them. These are all very dope indeed for their own reasons.
I do want to throw these out there because we like when people give their own opinions and or add to the polls. We also had mentions of Salem, The Exorcist TV show, Penny Dreadful, Mindhunter, and Channel Zero. I haven't seen any of them, so yeah.
Yeah, these were mentioned by several of the fans and the Facebook group, and some of these I've heard of, some of them I have not. But after hearing some of these titles, I'll definitely be keeping my eyes peeled to check these out for sure. Yeah. So that wraps up the results for last week's poll, which brings us to this week's poll, which is...
We're going companies, guys. Distribution.
That's right.
Which company puts out the best horror releases, in your opinion? If there is not one on this list that you would like to add, then put it in the comments. Cool.
That's right. Voice that shit.
Yeah, you deserve to be heard.
I like that. You deserve to be heard. It sounds like it rhymes.
It does.
Deserve to be heard.
You have Scream Factory, Arrow, Grindhouse, Redemption, Vinegar Syndrome, Synapse,
Yep.
Blue Underground, and Code Red.
Yeah, so a bunch of different, very notable companies. There is obviously other ones out there that are putting out releases, but these are some of the top ones. I know there is some other good companies out there, or bigger, more known companies that do put out stuff, Massacre and Twilight and a few other ones. So feel free to chime in with those as well, but try to pick one that's listed in the poll. when you vote. Either way, drop your comment in there. Let us know what you think. You are part of the show and part of what we do here at Horror Headquarters, so we appreciate you guys getting involved with these polls of the week. It is important, and it does get you involved and interactive with the show, and we'll continue to be doing these every week. We're going to go ahead and give our thoughts, which one we think is our favorite factory, or our favorite company, that puts out releases.
No, we're not. Everybody,
not this week. Yeah, not this week.
No.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait until next week. We always stay 1 week behind. We don't give out our results until we actually give the results of the poll. So you're not going to figure out which ones are our favorite companies until we actually do that episode next week, which will be the Christmas episode, when we give the results on that and hit you with a brand new poll for that week, which will be a Christmas related poll as well. So that about wraps up the poll of the week. That brings us to the last part of the show, which is
the final chapter. Dun, dun,
dun. Now, this is basically the wrap-up of the show. We appreciate you guys to tuning in to episode 8. This is our Phantasm franchise episode of Horror Headquarters. We went over a lot tonight. We went over bone-breaking news, which encompassed the Bad Seed remake coming by director and star Rob Lowe. We went over Shelley Finkelstein coming into Friday the 13th, the game from Part 3. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 finally hitting Blu-ray in 2018, being released by Warner Archive. An American Werewolf in London remake coming, being directed by Max Landis. We went over all 5 of the Phantasm films in order. We also went over our Netflix best pick, which was Tucker and Dale vs. Evil from 2010. Our Pick Your Poison, which was The Human Centipede from 2009 versus The Human Centipede 2 from 2011, both directed by Tom Six. We went over our body count reviews, which was Clown House from 1989, directed by Victor Salva. The Mutilator from 1984, directed by Buddy Cooper and John Douglas. Cheerleader Camp from 1988, directed by John Quinn. Tales of Halloween from 2015, with various directors encompassing each segment. The Perfect Host from 2010, directed by Nick Tomnay. The Last Shift from 2014, directed by Anthony DeBlasi. And Mercy from 2016, directed by Chris Sparling. We also went over the poll results from last week, the poll for this week, and that brings you here to your final chapter, which is the wrap-up. So we appreciate you guys. Yeah, we appreciate you guys spending over 3 hours with us.
This is our longest podcast yet.
Yeah, this is our longest episode yet. We appreciate you guys sticking in for this one. This is a fucking real all-nighter for us. It took us 2 days to record this damn thing, so we appreciate you guys tuning in and spending these 3 hours with us as we talked about the Phantasm franchise, one of my favorite film franchises of all time. We hope you tune in next week to episode 9, which is going to be our Christmas special. We have lots of cool stuff planned for that, and there might be some type of giveaway going on for Christmas.
Woo!
Rubs fingers together vigorously.
I'm pretty sure they can hear your hands.
I'm sure they can hear that shit. That's right, on your face. In your face. So, we appreciate you guys spending this time. That has been another episode of Horror Headquarters, hitting you over top of the head with the greatest of horror news and knowledge. We hope you tune in next week to episode 9, the Christmas special. Until then, we will talk to y'all. Just understand, we are just dying to talk horror.